All right, so we're live. So this is GauntletCon the Veil Cascade. I'm Fraser Simons. I'm the designer, and I'll be running it. Do we want to just go in order to introduce ourselves? I'll just call out people because I don't know how your windows are arranged. So I'll just go from left to right. Aaron, do you want to start?
Yeah. What would you? Am I going through character or just name?
Just name for now. Yeah.
Hi,
Just introductions.
I'm Aaron DeRosa. This is my third month playing role-playing games, and so I'm sorry for what's about to happen.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you'll be fine. Okay, and then it looks like Arthur is next for me.
Hey, I'm Arthur. I've been playing role-playing games for quite a while. I've been listening to the Gauntlet for just a couple of years now and have gotten really interested in it. Recently joined the Slack group and Patreon, and so this is my first time actually doing a Gauntlet hangout. At least this convention is my first time. I played one game earlier today.
Oh, cool. And then Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew. I've been playing Gauntlet games for a little while, kind of just inserting myself into the community nicely at this point. And the Veil has definitely been of interest to me for a while. I'm big on the whole states thing, and I'm really excited to give it a shot. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. And Steven.
Hi, I'm Stephen Watkins, and I've been playing with the Gauntlet since probably close to the beginning, but usually only on the weekends. I'm pretty excited about playing the Veil. I played it once before; it was very good, and it'll be exciting to see how it works as a one-shot. And
cool.
So good.
Awesome. And everybody has the link for Roll20. Looks like everybody's in there. If anyone's hearing echoing or anything like that, go into the top right corner in the gear and go down to video and voice and just select, I want to broadcast to others nothing. I want to receive from others nothing. And other than that, we should be good. For bookkeeping, looks like 3 people already have characters. Yeah, you guys are quick. So
I actually just got lucky. I left work thinking it was, it started an hour earlier than it really did. So I had some time to prep.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. So we have player 4. Has everyone used Roll20 before? For what? Yeah? Everyone's good with it? Okay, sweet. So player 4 person, feel free to edit. So it looks like Steven and Aaron are good.
I think I'm player 4.
Okay, cool.
All right, so what's the playbook that's left over then?
Yeah, what did people pick so far then? Let's go that.
I picked up the percipient.
I'm playing the aesthetic.
And I'm playing the nomologist.
Okay.
So that leaves the denotation and the telepresence.
Mm-hmm.
Fraser, can you talk about those 2 playbooks in your words and kind of give me some flavor for them?
Sure. Denotation is like the biggest touchstone for it is an anime called Denyu Coil, but essentially you have some sort of physical object that allows you to hack the Veil in a physical way. Instead of the 90s tropes of people having a cyber deck that connects to like the internet of whatever, you're actually like using something physical on the Veil's physical overlay of something to change it. And that can still become your access point. It just means that your access point is something physical as opposed to a deck.
Okay.
And the telepresence is sort of like a newscaster, except you're broadcasting your entire experience instead of just being like an on-location news reporter or something like that. Instead, the story is your experience, and the audience is getting the entire experience. And you start with a stream suppressor that basically is like allows you to tailor the experience, but with roles when you broadcast a live experience, if it goes sideways, then that's when your stream suppressor fails, and then the creative control goes to the audience, and it's sort of your relationship becomes inverted with the audience, and they can kind of influence what they want you to do next instead of you dedicating the experience to what you want.
Interesting. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with the denotation and just kind of explore this idea of sort of physically interacting with the veil. I think that sounds pretty interesting.
Cool. Okay. First of all, let's go over touchstones. What cyberpunk touchstones does everybody have? Let's start with Aaron.
In terms of the character, or in terms of just personal like interests?
Like media references, and what you want to specifically have in this game that we'll be playing.
Yeah, so I think on on some of your reading list from an early interaction with you, I checked out Psychopaths, and I just started Ergo Proxy and Existenz, and but Blade Runner I think is what Blade Runner, and what's the other William Gibson novel that I
Neuromancer?
No, it's one of the three new ones that are sort of set in the present, Zero History, and anyway.
Oh, The Peripheral?
Yeah, so I'm working on this project on advertising culture, and so I'm really interested in branding and brand communities, and so I'm interested in that sort of like corporate branded history, or pulling that theme of brands out of this interaction.
Okay, cool. So the veil will probably have some sort of thought-casted branding stuff that goes on, most likely then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then Arthur?
For me, I just recently watched a new Blade Runner, so that's certainly a touchstone for me. I'd say that the Android Netrunner universe, which is a board game, a card game, which is like a very like high-tech, futuristic, corporate-run sort of world, and Ghost in the Shell is probably another touchstone for me.
The new or the old?
I've seen both. I most recently saw the movie, which for me was successful visually. Plays into that genre for me.
Cool. And Matthew.
Yeah, so I don't actually have much under my belt. I'm just kind of diving in at this point. But I've seen Ghost in the Shell, the original, Akira. The Red Rising series sort of has some cyberpunk dystopian-ish stuff going on, but not really. And otherwise, it's going to be a lot of just ideas from what I find interesting about the setting. I think the advertising stuff could be cool because the character I've set up is what I'm interested in exploring is kind of the suppression of creativity because of constant being fed information and media and constantly from the veil, and the idea that people don't spend enough time outputting that stuff. So I think that could be a cool playing off of thing with Aaron's character or with the setting. Cool.
Okay. And Steve?
So I've read Gibson and stuff like that. I would say that one of the things that's key for me, sort of like the Matrix, the dystopian future and the differences between what's reality and what's not, and how artificial reality is created. Especially whenever I saw the nomologist character, what came to mind was the old movie Strange Days.
Yeah, totally.
And I was like, oh, that I kind of want to explore, what's reality if you can swap memories.
Yeah, which is if people have seen the newest Ghost in the Shell, that was a sub-theme, was memories are just stories that we tell ourselves, right? It's what we do that matters, that kind of stuff. So, and actually the newest Ghost in the Shell also hits out a lot on branding. Even if you've seen the commercials, you've seen her walking down the street and you see like just bombarded with all these adverts, right? So cool. Second question for each of you. What kind of movie do you guys want to play then? Do you want to play like an action cyberpunk one where you guys like are a team of, Ghost in the Shell type people? Is it a murder mystery where you're all sort of unravel or wrapped up in this mystery and we're trying to unravel it? Is it just straight shooting up cyberpunk Shadowrun type mission stuff, or what are people interested in?
Personally, I don't see my character as a super action-oriented character, although I definitely want that to be part of the game at some point. I think that I'm interested in. I guess I'd like to have some personal scenes, and I'd like to kind of I'd like to see, you know, maybe important events or something. Like I'd like to focus on something happening in the fiction that we can maybe kind of interact with and wander around in, and maybe I just don't know if I want to go straight for the like team of agents personally, but I'm open to pretty much anything.
I kind of like the idea of exploring maybe a mystery, maybe you know, exploring what is real and what isn't, and does it matter in our world what is and isn't real. I think that's kind of interesting, especially since, you know, the Veil is this you know, feels like this all-encompassing you know, world within a world sort of thing.
Is the assumption that we're sort of like a group or of some kind, like that we know each other and we work together in some way?
It'll depend on the kind of movie that we're going for. You guys could all be tied together, or you could be tied together from the plot and come together that way.
So one of the things that kind of stands out to me that might be a good way to deal with this is sort of an Ocean's 11 kind of thing, where there's either a big heist or there's something that we have to get to, and we all have different skill sets that come at it. I think, like was said before, I don't, you know, the character that I'm kind of working on is more of a businessman or artist, not a, you know, infiltrator, not necessarily a, you know, gun shoot 'em up kind of guy. I don't know about the rest of the playbooks.
Yeah, mine is an artist as well, and it sounds like we have like a memory, you know, a memory thing to potentially play off of. And I feel like there could be, I like the idea that art or culture in some way is a significant part of whatever this, you know, mystery or heist or whatever it is. But if that's kind of like part of the backdrop, maybe something crossed over with advertising as well could be interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of like memories and information is a commodity. It's something traded and borrowed, and, you know, increases and decreases in value. I was thinking of my character potentially being a bit of an information broker, using his like physical hacking skills to pull interesting tidbits from history that may be, you know, sort of lost in our current world.
Okay, and you were the percipient, was it?
I'm the what is this?
Oh, the denotation, right.
Denotation, yes.
Right. And yeah, so just to be a little bit meta about the playbooks, you all each usually have a move where you get +1 forward if you say something basically about the world. For the one shot, that's a free move. Just take that yeah, like as an extra move, just because I want to see you guys contributing to the fiction in that way. So consider that a free move. And then basically all of them are like the aesthetic. You're going to be talking about the counterculture to get it. The percipient talks about mainstream culture to get it. Pneumologist, there is, which was it? Something else. Let's look. +1 forward. Oh, maybe you don't. Oh yeah, you've got the I'm your priest, I'm your shrink action. Okay, so maybe not. Yeah, there's definitely the percipient, and like you guys are sort of the same coin on opposite sides. One of you is counterculture, one of you is mainstream. So what I'll specifically be looking for while we make our way through whatever streets of the place that we're in is you guys using that moves to fill in what is mainstream culture and what is counterculture and what we're going to be going forward. So just always keep that in the back of your mind. Denotation. Let's have you guys have pick 2 or 3 moves extra. Like, we'll have you guys mostly filled out.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Is the denotation playbook? I'm not seeing it as one of the options on Roll20. Does it have a different name?
No, on Roll20, it only has the regular Veil ones.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have it. Yeah, so you have to sort of manually input that stuff into it. But
Got it. Okay.
We're mostly just using Roll20 for the bookkeeping stuff.
That makes sense.
I have an idea that we could potentially like shape and stuff, but I have like a basic frame of something that could be interesting.
Sure.
So the nomologist, you have an establishment of some kind, right? Like you're kind of like the maitre d'.
That's right. So I have let me tell you what I've got built up right now.
Sure.
I have a store. It's capital S. The name of it is Read Access Memories, or RAM for short.
Nice.
It has, I have some stuff in here. The things that people talk about for my store are the, let's see, it's the place to be because of the movies, the art, and the sex. And where they talk about it, it's intriguing, expensive, baronial, and intimate. I assume baronial is, majestic.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Well, it could be cool if there's some kind of event happening at your store, and it could be like a gallery or a presentation or something like that. But the 4 of us have come together to, put this on, but maybe as sort of like a con or a ruse in order to get somebody important there, to get something from them, or to extract information from somebody, or basically, I don't know exactly what it could be, but just to center it around, your store, to have that be a big part of the setting. We could be putting on an event of some kind in order to get something from somebody. That's if we want to be working together, but it's just an idea that I had. And but I'd want to work, Aaron's character into that as well too, because I don't want to just go in on the artist thing all the way.
Well, let's talk about people's characters for what they have a idea for their characters, and then build a setting outward from that. So Steve, we've already got. What about Sonia?
Okay.
You're
Sonia.
the aesthetic, right?
Yes, I'm the aesthetic. So what I have so far is Sonia. The look I have is femme, surreptitious face, elusive eyes, compelling body, Middle Eastern. I have a picture of her on the Roll20 if you guys can see that. She's small, fairly unassuming, a bit timid on just meeting her. But her jam is she is a synesthetic. So some sort of cybernetic technology that she has. My idea is that she's a musician. The way that she performs is she has some sort of like full body suit that's almost like a theremin that she actually dances and can produce all sorts of different tones and resonant frequencies and these lush like harmonies that are able to trigger synesthetic responses in other people. So that she's able to sort of prompt, the creation of other prompt. My idea is that she when she performs, she kind of activates the creativity of other people, right? Like they produce these images and these feelings and these sensations based on just the sounds that she's creating with her dance music, basically. And I think her big thing is that she wants to encourage, creativity and personal expression amongst people who she feels like have been suppressed by an overwhelming force feeding of information and advertising and content and media through the veil. So she's kind of more about the holistic, what can you, how can you really express yourself, and what does that really mean, and what's the value of personal creativity, kind of. So that's her big thing.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay. And what about Vellum?
Yeah, Vellum Fae. Androgynous, pop culture wear, generic face, discerning eyes, lithe body, white. I imagine they're wearing a 1940s style like canvas bomber jacket, and she has been hired by. Where's this? Her mission. She works for an advertising firm that wants to ensure the organization's survival and success in the future by collecting and archiving like entertainment usage data across cultures, and essentially just collecting like data, just storing tons and tons of data that will allow them to sort of be prepare for an imminent collapse of some type of like some type of veil-wide collapse of some sort. And she's sort of questioning that. She's been doing this for a while and is trying to figure out whether or not, trying to decide whether or not culture is actually worth saving, like what is worth saving. And yeah, that's what I've got so far.
Okay. And do you take other jobs from other people, or you just exclusively work for this corporation?
I think I exclusively work for them, but I like her jam is that she's a librarian. She's an archivist.
Okay. Okay.
And so one of her cybernetics is that she has playing with something with her spinal cord is like additional storage, and she like stores data and images of things that she finds valuable, things that she wants to preserve with the inevitable collapse.
And there's really nobody else who could protect it better too, right? So,
right.
Yeah, okay. And then Ember.
So I've had a little less time to think about this character than these other guys, but I'll try to muddle through. So what I'm picturing, sort of where this is growing from, is a visual of like a very sparse sort of studio space that's full of sculpture that has a lot of really natural, organic lines. And so my thinking is that Ember, sort of like Ember's jam is that he is a sculptor. The way that he interacts with the veil is through natural forms, and so he fills his apartment with these forms that both help him connect to the veil, but also reflect this sort of information that he pulls from the veil. It's almost like the feeling of the veil he shapes into sculpture using clay and stone. And I picture him sort of living amongst these sort of organic shapes. So I think by trade, he is an information broker. So he's kind of this enigmatic figure that pulls loose threads from the veil using his unique sort of way of interfacing with it, and he sells that. He is that part of his life is very cold. It's just what he does to make money and get by. He doesn't really care who he sells this information to or what their purposes are. But I think the part of his life that engages his emotions is the sort of sculpture work that he does. And I'm picturing him almost as a Banksy type figure, where he may take some of these sculptures and place them in public spaces as a way of sort of helping the rest of the culture connect with something real, but never signs any of his work, and no one knows where these pieces come from.
Interesting. And what was the implement that you're using again?
For connecting to the veil?
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how I want to do this, but I'm thinking that there's something about maybe there's some cybernetics within his hands that allow him to use the curvature of the natural forms that he has around him to connect to the veil. So there's something about it. It's almost like a living computer, but it uses these very things that he's sculpting.
So is it like is it almost like like, so you were saying he makes, or she makes, what
He.
is the, he
Yeah.
makes these sculptures. So when he sort of lays hands on an overlay in the veil, he can shape it like a sculpture. Is that the idea? Like,
yeah,
any
I
kind
think
of
that's
space.
how he interprets the veil, is these forms, these sort of flowing fluid forms.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So let's see. We've got aesthetically, everyone's mostly on board with a Ghost in the Shell looking world where it's like perpetual advertisements, and since it's always the future, I usually picture wherever we are is like a nameless, sort of like a mega city where cultures have bled together. It's assumed that whatever languages you guys are speaking are sort of like an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different languages that you guys can just understand. Like, maybe you have interfaces that pump out or translate it naturally into your ears, but like some words are Spanish, some words are French, some words are English, etc. If we if we go with a Ghost in the Shell type world, I want to know from. Okay, so does anyone have a clear idea of how class is stratified in this place? Then how are you people oppressed by an omnipresence of some kind to make it cyberpunk? Is it money? Is it social currency? Like, maybe the two things are tied. If you've read Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, everybody's money is their social currency. And as people like you, or there was a Black Mirror like this recently as well, right? Like with the woman who wanted to rent the car, she couldn't because she didn't have enough social cred, and she kept decreasing in social cred because every interaction she had with people, they rated her less on the spectrum or whatever. So maybe your form of oppression is just the idea that people are inherently kind of bad to each other when social interactions occur. Maybe it's capitalistic and you guys just don't have that much money. Maybe it's both. It could be even in the new setting that I wrote in, or like an adventure starter that I wrote in Cascade. I have it as a multi-tiered system, except that at the bottom is where the highest social class is, because it's called the green zone, and where everybody is down there, they're connected to the natural environment, they're enjoying the earth the way it is, and the higher up you go, the lower your status is, and you have to go like look down into the abyss of green that is, despair, basically. So does anyone have any ideas about how they would like to be oppressed?
I have a couple ideas. I think there's two avenues that could be really interesting. Is one, we have a few different Arthur and Aaron, your characters kind of both play off information in an interesting way, like gathering information and brokering information. And it could be that is something that is inaccessible, not inaccessible to us, but like valuable information that we can use. And another way we could be being oppressed is through like, I like that it's it's sort of capitalistic, but like the idea that we are like literally forced to consume a certain amount of advertising in order to like earn like a wage, or like food if we're poor or something. Like that's a way that people can get by, or even a requirement that people need to do is just consume a certain amount of advertising.
Well, I like that idea as well. For sure, with the pneumologist, we already know that society is in some way commodified memory, just because of the way that his playbook will work. The idea behind it is he can rip people's memory, and it sort of can bleed in with his own, depending on how the move works. But there's definitely some sort of commodified chip that comes out of it that is valuable and can be sold or traded or whatever.
This made me think about the idea that this kind of world probably is riddled with fake information. Whatever powers that be are putting out, through advertisement and news and all those things, kind of a story that they want to tell. So maybe that's part of the oppression, is the difference between what is real and what is being and what was being produced by the power structure. So maybe people pay good money in some way to get real information, whether that's somebody's memories or whether that's hard to find information. Maybe it takes a special skill to be able to pick apart what is real and what isn't.
Interesting. Cool. Okay. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I think playing off this idea of so what I'm thinking is playing with the idea that the brand is like this, not necessarily evil, but that it is also in effect an aesthetic creation in and of itself, and that the brand becomes a form of currency that we buy into and pull out. So I'm thinking of like a branded community that is totalizing, right? It's not just the product that you buy, but it's a lifestyle that you live, right? So like Harley Davidson, it's not just about buying a motorcycle. It's also about, it's also about a certain kind of travel. It's also about a certain kind of fashion. And then your class is sort of dictated by those brands that you, by the brands that you buy, or by the brands that you're given, perhaps.
So like, yeah, so I could literally be born into like having a BMW, and that's my status.
Yeah, and not only a car, right, but BMW owns an entire line of like lifestyle related clothing and food and
yeah, like maybe even cybernetics, right? Like, oh, my eyes are BMW, right? Even
right, the sort of quality tier of technology is also related to like a sort of caste system almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's almost an ability like what do you call it when you buy like a PS4 and it is also able to play like PS3 and PS2 stuff?
Backwards compatibility. Yeah.
Right. And so for upper classes, they have this ability to they're backwards compatible with like lower tiered brands, maybe, but lower tiered brands are not compatible with upper tiered brands.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay, so I think that's all done through. I like the idea of that being all cybernetic and hardware put into you, and then it's basically passes through like your neurochip, and people can hack this, right? Like people can trick their mind into accepting BMW eyes or whatever, right?
Right.
So in terms of what kind of story we want to tell, do we want to do a sort of because we could easily, like Steve was saying, with these ingredients, we could build a sort of Ocean's 11 team where you guys are trying to pull off a thing where you're subverting someone in power and you're creating a space that is enabling you to do it, like sort of an Inception even, because you guys all have like the denotation and the aesthetic. You could be literally driving this person, like creating the space. The denotation could be shaping it. The percipient could be protecting it, and the pneumologist could be the one like benefiting from the commodification of this space as well, right? Like, and the memory that everyone creates for doing it.
It could also be, rather than recording a memory to then sell later, it could be implanting a memory.
Yeah, that could be it as well. Yeah, like it could even be like the BMW guy comes to town and you want to like plant a memory of him being an asshole and realizing that this is like the wrong way to go about doing this and starting, the start of change or something like that, right?
The Audi is the way to go.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of us being involved in a movement or precipitating a movement. Something popped into my head about potentially our goal is to create some sort of safe zone that is outside of the oppression. And so maybe there's some sort of technology or person or something that we know is like the key to helping us build this like safety zone sanctuary type idea.
I like that idea a lot.
So like rather than implanting, an idea to help everybody. The idea is to help to basically make whoever is oppressing you forget about this space.
Mm-hmm.
And that space will be your haven or your solace, right?
Right, and maybe it's the start of something bigger.
Right. Okay, cool. So, interesting. What I usually do for one shot, since you don't know what moves are going to be pertinent, you can pick them if you really want, but I think just bear in mind that you'll have 3 or 4 moves throughout this, and if you see an opportunity to use one, then just use it and then pick it instead of pre-selecting them and then maybe not being able to use one, and you see one where you're like, oh, I wish I had that move, and I pick something else, right? So let's do questions then. Everybody has 3 questions. This is how you get XP. The first question is easily tied to somebody else. So usually it'll be, if our mission is to subvert this person and basically make it so it's a permanent blind spot, can you trust everybody else doing this, for one? And if you just have like a spark of inspiration with somebody else's character where you want to know a thing, that's a good question. And then when you drive at a personal scene, for instance, Matthew, then that would mark you XP for having that scene with them as well. So it's a good way of like rewarding yourself in a tiered situation. Another question could be, should be something specifically about the setting that you want answered, but it injects that thing. So for instance, perhaps you wonder about, there's a specific cult group within your society that is retro and they like to use decks, and you would like to learn more about them. So by making it a question, you're also injecting them into the fiction. We may or may not be able to explore it, but it's a good way of world building anyway. And then the third question is whatever you want. Usually people do it something about like driving at the end goal of what we're going for. So you could even, since there's 4 questions between you, it could all be about this end goal. Like, will this, it should be something immediate for this session though, so it can pay off. So it could be, what is the name of this person? What is the best way to get at them? Certain things like that, so that when you unravel your plan to get at this person, each of you are getting XP from it in different ways. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I think will be a little bit hard for one-shots is the question about other people, just because we haven't seen them in play yet. So if you want, you could even leave that blank until we get rolling, and then when you have a question about somebody else that you want answered, then you could put it down. Also, in Cascade versus the regular game, we have an additional move called Flashback, and that is specifically to get a question answered. If you have an answer for a scene that you want to inject in the fiction and it would have taken place beforehand, if you do a move and then you have an idea about that move, you can use the role that you just did in order to have the flashback. For instance, if I was trying to neutralize somebody and I had a question about, am I morally okay with killing somebody? And then I do a neutralize move on somebody else, and I roll a 6 and a 2, and then I want to have a flashback scene about maybe the genesis of this quandary, or like, or perhaps I've forgotten that I have pulled the trigger before and I want to introduce that. So I've forgotten that I have killed somebody before, but my question is, am I okay with it? I could use the neutralize move, kill the person or whatever, also use the same move, and it was a 6 and a 2, so I would have 4 to that state, and then just narrate like a flashback as if it was Blades in the Dark and I was introducing whatever to answer my question, and then just take the XP for it. So it's a lot of information right now, but we'll tackle it in stride as we go. let's see, what else do we want to have? Is everybody done filling out their character sheet for one? Is everybody at a good place with it?
I
Do we need
don't
to
have my
establish?
questions ready to go, but
Yeah, not questions, but everything else.
Do we need to establish gear and cybernetics and all that?
Yeah, pick your gear, pick your cybernetics. So is everybody aware of the veil, or should I go over it for cybernetic rules and all that kind of stuff?
I'd love to get an overview.
Okay, so for cybernetics, it's all just fictional positioning. What you do is there's the list on your character sheet of the different tags that you can pick.
Mhm.
Every time you pick one of those tags, you'll also pick a negative tag. So if you wanted the BMW eyes, then you could say eyes, and it could be like something about accessing more information than other people in just a simple word like privileged, and then also magnification and spectrum or something. So you can see all spectrums of light. You gain access to the privilege that everybody else has with those fake BMW eyes, or if they're real, if you're, higher born or whatever. And then as a negative tag, you just choose one of those things. And what happens is if you roll a miss, I might ask you what the negative tag for that is and invoke it in the fiction. It's just more fodder for me.
Okay, so if it says I 3 tags, does that mean that you pick 3 positives and 3?
No, just one
negatives?
negative.
Just one negative. Okay.
Yeah, it's always just one negative, and
Got
then
it.
you get the benefit of the 3 tags.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and you can do that as many times as you want, but every time that you do that, you also have to tell me if you owe obligation for it, if you owe cred for it, that kind of thing. So there is the element of, you're giving me even more fodder than the negative tag. Like someone might be hunting you, or you might owe cred, or yada yada.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
I think in this scenario, I don't know, maybe I'll take a poll with you guys. Do you guys think that we should do obligation questions, or do you think it would be that valuable for you guys in this kind of a situation? I think they're more or less like geared towards you doing ongoing play. If you guys are up for the idea of already being on board for doing this thing, it probably won't come into play anyway, and it might just take up more of our time. So it's up to you.
I'm fine letting that develop in the fiction if necessary.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. The other times I've done a one shot it, we've pretty much never hit on it. So now I just usually fast forward through it. Okay. So what else is there? Everybody's good. Everyone's got their playbook selections complete. Yeah.
just
Denotation, I'm wondering what the gatekeepers are then, because that might help us out.
Tell me a little bit about gatekeepers.
Let me look here. Denotation. So gatekeepers, essentially think of yourself like an idealistic version of a hacker.
Mhm.
And the gatekeepers are people that they might be the specific oppression of us, or they could just be people that are gatekeeping information, like actual specific information. Yeah. So the gatekeepers could even be the people that decide, like they have the mainframe database or whatever that are that kind of allow for people to tap into this privileged hardware. It could be.
I feel like there's probably some sort of corporate gatekeeper there. It's pretty traditional for the setting, but it seems to make sense.
Maybe to make it interesting, do we want to say that the percipient works for that same corporation? Do you guys have an idea for what the name of the corporation would be?
I came up with the name Polides, Polides.
Do you want to just type it in chat?
Yeah.
And are you okay with that, Arthur?
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool.
And is there a second gatekeeper that we need to establish as well?
If you want.
Oh, I mean, I think it's fine if anybody else has other ideas. I mean, there could be a political or military or some other component to it too. If anybody has anything in mind.
There's you just need to select the circle all the ways that they gatekeep from everybody else. So there's encryption, propaganda. Propaganda probably makes sense since we already said that. Surveillance, laws, hierarchy, monopolization. So I guess hierarchy and propaganda are already invoked, but if you want to invoke other stuff, you can do that as well.
Okay, sounds good. I'll add that to my character sheet.
And what is your purpose for doing this as well, if you have that at all, an idea of that? In your iconography, so it says your implement has been modified. It now has meaning beyond what it once did. What is the meaning in relation to the world? Why did you modify it? And it's you select subvert, eradicate, experience, or inspire, and then those options. Mm-hmm. You've kind of already gone with a artist vibe, so it might be subverting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you see it as a perversion, maybe?
I almost see it as hope. I think. Well, so it's subversion to inject some hope into the world.
Okay, so you inspire hope by essentially showing people that what their eyes see as like the physical and the digital world are hybridized, but you show that like, hey, this is like clay, and I'm not the only one that could be molding this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Interesting. So do you have like hands that are cyberized or something for this?
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing like some sort of cybernetic interface that uses my hands, and so I can as I'm like tracing these organic shapes, that's my way of interfacing. So I'm at a little bit of a loss for tags for that.
As long as you know what it does in the fiction, the tags are not super important, and they can be exactly spot on, right? It's just so that you get a quick idea of what they specifically do.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, what else have we got going on here? Okay, so is everybody good to go for one? Yeah, Matthew?
I'm still kind of struggling with my questions a little bit, but otherwise I'm good to go. I'll keep thinking about it.
Okay, and if you have a question about somebody else, maybe tell them so you guys can both try to hit that like a flag or something, right?
Yeah, well, I think it'd be interesting if myself and Ember if Sonia and Ember had worked together before, or maybe if I was a fan of Arthur and wanted to get closer to him or of Ember. Sorry, is Ember what gender? What pronouns is Ember?
Male.
If you guys want to go to the clock, the gear and roll 20, and then just rename your names to the character name, and then he, him, she, her, or whatever you want to do. And then people can just quickly look at those whenever they need to.
Sorry, the clock?
It's like a gear icon in the top right.
Yeah.
And then display name is right there, and you just change it and just hit save.
Great. So you said that your character is sort of a Banksy type. Are you more of a recluse, and then you kind of come out and just leave your statues around? Is there a chance that I would have like met you in some way? Because my character is, very focused on the idea of self-expression. Like like I do perform for large groups as kind of just like an experience show, like a multi-sensory concert. But also I do kind of like personal sessions where it's almost like therapy, where I play the music and I kind of guide them through the session, but they're the ones creating the images kind of from memories and from also their own, ideas and senses of creativity. That's kind of what she does. So I'm like, I wonder if we're part of the same counterculture in that way or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. A thought occurred to me that maybe I'm a fan of yours, and that you've recognized in some of the art pieces that have been left out in the open some reflection of the music that you make, and so you have you have a suspicion that someone that attends your work, your concerts frequently might be this Banksy type character. Nice. And you think it might be me.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
So like, yeah, now comes the question part, but that's definitely good.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions that they would want to explore about another character? Is there any interest piqued in something? It looks like a natural one between perhaps Sonia or Pleasant and Vellum even might be. Does Pleasant have Vellum on their radar in terms of like, have you ever sold these memories and this information to Vellum before to protect, or even like somehow tried to get your information there without their idea of it or anything like that?
So I like the idea that possibly, so Vellum, tell me if you're okay with this, but I like the idea that maybe Vellum had a memory that they didn't want to remember anymore, and they asked me to remove it.
And they don't remember this?
I think they remember that they came to me and there was something that was painful, and they asked me to remove that memory.
Interesting.
What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea. I also like the idea of like knowing you but not knowing why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I think the question I might want to ask is, because of Ember's ability to sort of like personally and viscerally like manifest their work upon the veil, I want to use him as kind of like a figurehead, or like me, an example of what somebody can do if they kind of are able to detach from the veil and really just release, not detach, but like express themselves through a different sort of way, kind of thing, like some way to put him up on a pedestal, sort of. Is that make sense?
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I think just from like seeing your work, I think you're someone who gets the message I'm trying to put across, and I want to kind of demonstrate to other people, this is what we are really capable of if we, tune into our own, frequencies, kind of.
Yeah, and maybe I'm ready to step out of the shadows, and your belief in me inspires me to do so, and that's part of us working together toward starting this movement.
So is the question, will they step out of the shadows if I help them or something? Or
yeah, I guess I'm thinking of how to frame it. I was thinking like, how can I best support or leverage, or what's another word like that, to yeah, I mean, if you're reluctant to, sorry, go ahead, Fraser.
Is it about making their dream come true, essentially?
I think it's both, right? Like, I think there is a little bit of me wanting to prove myself. Like I see him as an opportunity as well as a person. So there's like a little bit of both going on there.
Well, maybe frame it in such a way that, like you said, you wanted to have a personal scene, so drive the question at that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question about another character? Not yet? We can always just make one during as well. Let's see. So I'm thinking, why don't we set it up with a series of vignette scenes? So I'm going to ask you guys each where you are, what you're doing, and then we'll have like an overarching scene that pulls you guys together into doing this Ocean 11's job, and then we'll go into doing the job. Let's take a 5-minute break so you guys can think about that stuff. Other things that you should think about. I want to know, how do we know that this is the future? So if you have any like just weird, interesting scenes of tech going on as you're walking, think the Ghost in the Shell's trailer when she's walking down the street and we see all this weird shit going on and we know it's the future, right? And what adverts we see. And then, yeah, other than that, we'll just line up a series of vignette scenes. So just think about where you would like to be. If you want to be paired up with other people, that's cool too. But let's take 5 and come back at 08 or 09 on the clock, since it's probably getting to be 04. Does that sound good, everybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, see you in 5.
Cool.
You doing okay, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm a little quiet. I'm still trying to feel my way out in the world, and also still like that transition from like fantasy, like that grotesque fantasy of like Jason's.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, Jason's reality to this like cyberpunk future is a very abrupt transition. So yeah.
I imagine so, yeah. Okay, so a good idea. Well, first of all, let's make it. When I run my games, I make it very cinematic. Like Steve knows, to the point where I'm like, this is a Michael Bay movie and shit, right? So just be thinking about that. Like revel in the details. If you want to linger on something, do so. Yeah, don't be afraid to embrace the idea that it is a movie and that tropey things sometimes happen, and that's fine. Let's try to subvert stuff where we can, though. For instance, this bad person, let's make them like a white female instead of like, a bad black guy or something like in 90s cyberpunk, right? And do you guys have... I'm thinking for these opening vignette scenes, if you guys have seen the original Ghost in the Shell, they do this wonderfully where you're introduced from the world with the soundtrack and they just cut to different scenes of the actual landscape and the city and stuff like that. So you get a feel for it. So do you guys have any ideas of what we see to know that this is the future, this unnamed city in the future?
I like playing with your idea of the verticality of cities and sort of the reverse verticality of cities. So I was thinking of the image for me as being these like a terraced world. Like all of these skyscrapers have these various terraces at different levels that are trying to emulate the greenery of the ground, but with like increasingly failed like grass. The grass gets browner or synthetic astroturf kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Cool.
I had this idea of like the atmosphere is sort of damaged by heavy industry and mining, and so I think it's maybe just wrote that when people go outside, they wear like breather masks or they have cybernetics that help filter air. It's just commonplace.
Is that why all the green stuff just can't live?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I think that we see a scene with actually Pleasant outside. She's outside of the store. She's out in the sort of in the stacks where the apartments are that everybody lives in. She's crouched on top, sort of like you see in the first scene from the Ghost in the Shell. She's crouched on top of one of the buildings and she's harvesting. And what this looks like is she's kind of going through level by level of the different denizens of that apartment complex. She's harvesting sensual inputs, so sounds and visual from their implants, because this is one of the corporation-owned buildings where she has the ability to harvest that and then use it in her art. His art.
So
I have a scene too, if that's okay.
For sure.
I think that Sonya, I think her mother had some sort of like viral illness or something and was despondent for a very long time, and enabling her to start doing art is what kind of started to cure her. So Sonya like cares for her mother, and she lives in like some dingy apartment somewhere basically, and her mother is like slowly recovering from this horrible illness, whatever kind it is, and she's kind of using her abilities to rehabilitate her. But I think the scene that we see is her leaving her apartment and just kind of going to do the shopping and just entering like the grocery store, and it's just this overwhelming barrage of when you enter different like fields or zones that are kind of set up to be these overlaid environments in the Veil, as soon as you enter them, it kind of projects this yeah, this overlaid alternate reality where you're kind of inhabiting this environment that's themed entirely around whatever that corporation is. So, you know, when you walk into the BMW section, you know, I guess BMW isn't the best example. When you walk into the Disney section, you know, there's like toadstools popping up everywhere, and, you know, princesses kind of like skipping alongside you and stuff like that. And then she just shakes her head, and you can see that like she has difficulty because of her increased perceptive abilities because of what she does. And it's just totally overwhelming to her. And that's kind of her perspective on this world.
Cool. So for Pleasant, I'm wondering, the stuff that you're harvesting, it's is it like as people are dreaming or something, or is it like everything that they're aware of at the moment is just getting fed to you and you're just kind of like recording it?
So I think it's sort of like as it's shifting from apartment to apartment, she's looking for interesting things, and one might actually be a fight that then's modified and looks like the fight is the core of what you see, but then there is a there's a vast distortion through the visuals and audio, and then it will switch, and she'll go down and record that for a little while, and switch down, and maybe someone's making love in another apartment, and she records that for a little while. So it's a melange of different things, but it's all distorted and modified as she stores it.
So is it is the idea so that he could whatchamacallit, like create a synthetic memory from this stuff in the future?
So this is actually used for the store where it's things that would be sold. So this is almost like Sin Trade, where he has the ability to pull in all this information because he's been given rights by the corporation, and then only very exclusive people get to experience this random stuff from normal people that's been modified.
Oh, okay, cool.
Is there like a fetishization almost of like certain types of like mundane experiences, or like experiencing like, because why are these people so interested in these just like random memories?
I think that basically what it is there's basically it's the elites experience what normal people are up to, but modified, and there's a lot of curiosity there, almost as if this is something that they can. It's something that they can peep into. Yeah.
Interesting.
I actually think that he refers to this as kind of an art modifying things, but I don't think real artists think this is an art. This is almost like pornography, or
right.
Disneyfying a movie or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And the thing I'll add is, I think with the going on the advert theme, I think adverts is like become the new game as well. So if you're really into Pokemon or whatever, then you literally have a Pokemon with you, except it's an advertisement at the same time for the game. So it keeps you perpetually hooked on the product because it's continually able to engage with you, but it has to have that consent. But since the world is built around you always seeing adverts, the problem is all these people have grown up as kids playing with their Pokemon or whatever, and now they still are like that. So we get all these shots of like within through that same parking not parking lot, the building that you're checking out, Pleasant. There's another one with like a small kid playing with a Pokemon, like a knick-knack paddywhack game or whatever, and each time that they're touching them, they're getting points. And then we pan over into like a living room shot, and it's like dark and dingy. There's barely any light getting through. It kind of looks like the quote-unquote like drug den or whatever, right? Except the father and the mother are there, and they have their like VR headsets on, and they're just kind of drooling, and their pets are also there, except that they're like sluggish, kind of fat Pokemon now, right? Like they emote the same qualities as their masters, and then we go back out into the world. Do you guys have idea? Does anyone have a solid idea for a first vignette scene of what they want to do?
I had kind of a fun idea. So I'm picturing the sort of opening establishing shot of my character as sort of the camera zooming in through kind of a small window. And as you're approaching the window, you can see that there's like laser lights kind of like scattering, and it's very dark inside. And as you get through the window, you sort of circle around all these like weird statues, and you come to, and there's still like laser lights all over the place and kind of like mist and smoke inside. And you can see that there's this pretty lithe figure in this kind of white jumpsuit with splotches of color, and there is this floor to ceiling, very organic looking, almost like smoke, roiling smoke caught in stone. And Ember is there, and he's like moving his hands around it, and like there are lights coming off of his fingers and this sort of honeycomb pattern that's going up his arms, and he's clearly sort of accessing something with it. And every time he moves his hands, like remnants of light kind of follow the shape. There's a view screen kind of that covers an entire wall. It's being projected, and they're just images of like historical landmarks and satellite images. They're like strobing these quick pictures, and the screen goes black after 30 seconds or something, and the lights in the studio come back up, and you can see it in more detail, and you can see him in more detail as well. And from there, he pulls like a data disk out of the wall, throws it into a bag, and walks out of the studio. And the scene that I had in mind after that would be, I think, him meeting with Vellum to sell the information that he just got from the Veil.
Okay, cool. Let's have that for after people are done vignettes then.
Cool.
So do we want to cut to Vellum, or does anyone have a specific idea? Does anyone need more time to think of something?
I think I might need another minute. I have an image, but I don't know what, I don't have an action in that image.
Okay, and Pleasant, was that your opening vignette scene as well?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So Sonia, do you have something?
Yeah, I think I have a general idea. I mean, I was like, it'd be good to just establish in this first shot like what she does and what she's capable of. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that I think that first we'd probably see her performing, not in the personal context. I think that's something that we might not see until like later on, because it's more of a meaningful scene. I think in this case, she is in. I'm trying to. It's some club. Actually, I mean, is the store a place where I would perform, or do we not want to go there yet?
Actually, that sounds great. No, I like that idea. So basically, the store is invitation only, and there are secrets and passwords in order for you to get in. It's very exclusive. But you've been invited. Your art is well enough known that it makes the establishment look better. So you have a residency of sorts back in a back room where you can come in and do your art practice, or you can put it on display maybe as a prototype or a beta test kind of thing if you'd like.
Cool. I think. Go ahead, Fisher.
Do you want to do one of your moves to find the place as well then? Because that might be a cool scene as well.
To find the store?
The counterculture? One of your moves?
Sorry, I'm not understanding what I'm looking for here.
In your, let's see.
Do you mean like beauty is truth, truth is beauty? Like if like.
No, you've got literacy of the heart. Is it? No. Pulse of the city.
Okay.
Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, but I so you're saying that like this would be the first time that I've gone there to find the place. Is that why I'd make this move?
It could just be an interesting scene to show you moving through the city to this place, if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, if that's not interesting to you, we can just cut to you being there too.
No, that could be cool, and then we could like set up the performance a little bit more for later on, just so. Yeah, sure. I'll make that move. I'm just gonna roll dice in real life if that's okay. But
Totally.
I think what I'm feeling. Let me bring up my character sheet.
What's the general, like, as you're moving through the streets, are you afraid? Like, is this a bad neighborhood? Like, is the oppression extending towards like the neighborhood and like stuff like that as well? Like, are you feeling safe moving through the city?
I don't think so. I think I'm very uncomfortable with the like the scene that you had described earlier about the parents kind of vegging out on their VR headsets. Like, I think we see scenes like that in the streets of people kind of like lying on the street, you know, kind of consumed by it, and maybe like, you know, people jacking in to just to pay their bills and stuff like that. And for Sonia, I think also the place that she's headed, she's uncomfortable about it too, because she's taken a job to perform for a group that she doesn't really like doing this part of it. She much prefers the therapeutic aspect rather than the performative aspect. And she sees it as kind of like something she has to do to pay for her like mother's treatment and stuff. But I think she's scared because of what feels like she might be walking into. And
okay. Maybe let's say that the your mother's illness is called by virals then. So it's like her consumption of the adverts, somebody hacked it or injected some bad code, and now she literally has like a virus in her neurochip, and that's what's like consuming her, and you're paying for the antivirals, like the malware being flushed or whatever, but it always comes back because it fucking always comes back, right?
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like a vegetative state, and then I'm trying to like rehabilitate her, but it's kind of like naturopathic medicine where it's like, is this really working? You know?
For sure.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna roll scared here, I think.
Sure, moving through the area.
I'm apprehensive about what I'm gonna do, and I'm uncomfortable from the shopping trip that I was just on. Maybe something happened there or whatever. But yeah, so it's +0. That's a 4.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
There you go, Fraser.
Yeah, great. Blipverts. No, what's that, Steve?
I'm sorry. That's an old reference to an old Max Headroom TV show.
Oh, everyone always is like, Fraser, you gotta watch this TV show, but I'm so
I wouldn't say it's great. It's just the thing that you mentioned, the mental virus kind of thing, is touched on. So that's why I was like, ooh.
Well, they stole my idea, you know.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So yeah, let's what ends up happening is let's have you choose an option from that move, and then I will go through the fiction for that anyway, because we know that you end up at that place already anyway, right?
Right.
So there's a code or procedure that you need to figure out first, I think.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Or someone you wouldn't want to know where you are now does could also be cool. The fact that I perform here is kind of a secret and kind of not known about, and maybe someone who is either interested in my services that I really wouldn't want them to pursue me, or someone who thinks I'm a threat or a danger, or someone, you know, something like that could be cool. But, you know, I'll throw it to you.
Sure. So I think what happens is you're moving through this dark area, and since the sky is sort of scorched like Blade Runner-y, let's all summon the image of the trailer with like the white or the red kind of tingy smoke everywhere and stuff, and you're moving through it, except that as you move your way through it, there's those people, like you say, like on the floor and lying down, and the smog makes it so that you're even more apprehensive because these people kind of like come upon you very quickly because your eyesight is not so good, perhaps, right? And I think a mark of this viral thing is that people's eyes glow kind of like vampire-y, too blue, right? Like the viral indication is that they're too blue, and you feel like as if someone is brushing the back of your neck, and you turn, but nobody's there, and you quickly make your way through this alleyway in which there's a code or procedure to figure out who you are first, and what is that in order to get into like this. Steve, did you pick the option where you're constantly moving and being reskinning the place on your playbook?
I did not, but I could.
Well, what are the two options for it that you picked?
Yeah, the two options I picked were invitation only and built-in state-of-the-art firewall, never allowing for prying eyes.
Ooh, okay. So I think maybe that's just let's go with simple here, and it is a firewall. So tell me how you get through this firewall. Like, what is your procedure to do that?
My procedure for this firewall.
And remember, Steve said that you had an invite as well, right?
Right.
I think we probably set up a job beforehand, and the two of us. I said, I think I even asked, "Do you want an escort?" And you said, "No, I can find my own way," and all of that. So. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now I'm regretting it a lot. I think that it is. So I'm trying to think of some way to kind of like work in my extra sensorial abilities here, but it's got to be like, is this something that everybody does, Steven, when they come to your place, or is this something that like
no, this is something most people, most patrons, most people who are going to be customers are escorted here usually by staff. And they're going to be, welcomed into the place, and they're going to have almost a concierge. You, on the other hand, is kind of a contract employee, are going to be coming in, and maybe this is overloading for you. Maybe the sensory information is too much.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think the procedure I have to figure out is that I have to kind of like navigate my way through this firewall that's sort of because I think my senses are all connected in these really intrinsic, complicated ways, and that allows me to kind of understand my art on a deeper level, but it also makes like regular everyday stuff more difficult for me. So I think it might be something that you weren't expecting, but it's almost like a puzzle that I have to like leverage my different senses in different ways in order to kind of navigate through it, sort of, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Cool. And then I think there's like a matrix door where the color palette is like too green to get into it. And as soon as you open the door, we cut to Vellum. Are you ready?
Yeah. So I think so the image I have is of me traveling up a sort of a clear elevator, a tube-like elevator on the outside of one of these skyscrapers, and seeing, looking out to the city and seeing these advertisements sort of scrolling across, and then that gets paired against like sort of an augmented reality of the advertisements that are just mine and my own, right? Mm-hmm. So there's like this ghosting of advertisement on top of advertisement. And what I'm doing in this building is I'm going up to a particular floor because I'm trying to track down some new fashion. I'm interested in collecting some information about some new brand that has been that these upper class that somebody in these upper classes in these lower classes are playing with in a way to working for Polides, like to appropriate that in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're making your way through the stacks to find this specific thing.
Yeah.
What do the stacks look like? Do they look like servers or something? Like, or are they actually like physical old school books and stuff like that, right? That are actual just data. like, because in the Veil that would be possible too, right? Like you could have physical stacks of books that are representative of the data that you could actually touch and download and stuff like that, right?
Oh, so I'm sorry. So I meant it like a skyscraper. Like this is like I'm going up this apartment complex.
Oh, okay. And where are you going to then?
So I'm trying to find some people. Like there's a family that I want to interview, or
Interesting.
yeah, just
Okay.
record their interactions in some way, shape, or form, just to see how they like operate within this new branded, like now that they have this new gadget of some sort. How do they interact with it with one another? And I'm trying to like sort of spy that out.
And how far up in the elevator do you go? Because with the stratification of class, the higher up, the lower, like the more impoverished they are, right? So how far up do we see you go? Is it like crazy high or what?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that brands work is by stealing culture from the impoverished, right? They find what is quote unquote gritty and real, and appropriate that, and then turn it into some type of value. And so she's going to the top fucking floors, the top floors to sort of see how the quote unquote other half live in exchange for, like, this is her job, right? Like this is how Polides owns her.
Sure. Yeah. Steve, do you have something to say? Oh, it looks like you're like ready to go. Okay. Yeah, so you get to the top, like one of the topmost floors, right? And let's go, instead of leaning into the traditional cyberpunk of it being just like really dirty and gross and stuff, instead it's completely immaculate, right? Because the Veil covers all of that up. It's like a sterile environment aside from all the adverts that are going on, and it's completely like more bombarded than any other place, right? Because these are the susceptible people to that. So you get to the family door and it's like completely white, completely sterile. In fact, it looks like it's trying to invoke the image of a prison for the audience, right? So there's like a slot where they could, if you knock, they could move it aside and then talk to you as if it is some sort of literal prison where they choose to reside. What do you do?
I'm gonna knock, and I'm gonna flip some. What am I wearing? I think I'm trying to give the appearance of that I belong here, and so maybe I switch how I appear in this space, seeing that this has been sort of a digitized space to include my own sense of fashion, and that shows me like not as I usually wear this like pop culture garb, but now it's a little bit more stripped down, a little bit more like laid back.
Okay, it's like hoodie wear and stuff like that, right? Except like whatever's on your chest, if it was like Nike, the check mark would be constantly like moving and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And you've got like the Nike Hugs shoes, like in Back to the Future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the whatchamacallit, the little slit goes, shh, and a little girl is like, you can tell it's a little girl because all you can see is like her forehead, and she's got sort of like dirty blonde hair, and that's all you can see. And then she just says, "Hello?
Hi, I'd like to ask you some questions."
Mom said I shouldn't be talking to people right now, though.
How would you like how'd you like to make some cred?
I don't know about this.
She totally gets that she's being creepy. Like part of this is that she doesn't really want to be doing this, and like recognizes that.
Oh yeah, you've got like it's like you're a door-to-door salesman, right? Like
exactly.
You have a rehearsed thing. Okay.
Yeah.
This is your jam, right?
No, my jam is actually the librarian archive thing. This is, I guess, maybe I'm differentiating in a way that I shouldn't.
So that's okay. If it was your jam, I would just give it to you, but instead let's do sway then.
Okay. I think I'm feeling. Where does bored fit into this? Into the wheel?
Maybe peaceful.
Peaceful or sad or something.
Yeah, it depends which way you feel. It's pretty subjective.
I think she's sad. I think that she doesn't like the fact that she's going to have to sell to a 12-year-old girl or whatever, whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
That is a 5.
You guys are not on fire.
No,
but you need to get rid of the shit so when we get to the main event, you're good, right? So whatever. Yeah. Okay, so I think actually the door opens and you see that it's not a little girl. It's like if you can conjure the image of somebody who's like completely like old, short, and like they've smoked so much, like a pack a day, that below the forehead it's like completely wrinkled up and stuff. And she's got the futuristic equivalent of a cigarette, like maybe it's a direct nicotine thing or whatever, like not vaping though, because I hate vaping, but it's like a futuristic cigarette, whatever that is. And her voice suddenly gets like the opposite of the little girl, right? And she's just like, "Fuck off."
So do I have an invite to the store, or am I trying to find my way? Am I trying to find somebody else's invite?
Is that what you're here for? You tell me.
I'm there for one of the two. Like I feel like I know that there's something going on. It's either I know that something's going on at this store that I want to be a part of, so that I can part of my job would be to.
Let's make it both. The most interesting thing I think would be both. There's the information that you want here, but there's also that there's an invitation to the store here as well. But like part of the miss condition is basically like convincing her this way is not going to work, right? Like you've had words already, and she's sort of took a stand.
Sure.
And yeah, she does the futuristic slur equivalent of "fuck off," basically, in like a really, really throaty tone.
But she has opened the door, right?
Yeah, she has opened the door, and
well,
then
that's the salesman's in. So I just sort of like push in and pass the fuck off.
Okay, so you go to step in, and I think that's the exact moment that Ember comes through or arrives at the elevator as well. Maybe a few minutes before. So Ember, you're specifically looking for Vellum, right?
Yeah, I think the original plan is we were going to meet in the basement or parking garage, for lack of a better term, of this building, and
they took
he's
too
late.
long.
Yeah, so I've ridden up the elevator, and so I step out and I say, "You're late."
I just have something to take care of real quick.
Right when you're about to get in there.
Yeah.
And that is
also another thing that I like to bring up in these futuristic scenarios is the concept of like IMing is usually predominant. Like think of your neurochip as like a drive that people can send to. So you could always just be like, you get an IM that's like, "I am about to fucking close the deal," or whatever. If you want to communicate like non-verbally or subvocally or whatever, that's totally an option in the setting.
Yeah, I think Vellum definitely she knows what's happening here. Like she knows she's not invited, and she's pushing her way in, and also wants the person on the other side of the door to know that she knows that she's not welcome. And so like the verbal "I'll be with you in a minute, I'm taking care of something" is also like part threat to is like a posturing to this person behind the door.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Steve, let me know what you think about this. What if the invitation is somehow circumventing this? Maybe this person is just a construct that you have created in order to get an invitation from somebody else, and that is their like program or something.
That's their job, basically. So this is sort of like It's sort of the equivalent to going to the back alley and, knocking on the, the alleyway door, and somebody, a bouncer opens up the thing and gives you a password or something like that. This is the equivalent. You go up and you have to meet with this little girl and talk your way through and figure out what the hell's going on in order to get your invite into the RAM. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
You guys are very generous.
So I like to think that that Ember is going to be impatient, always very precise with appointments, and is going to step out of the elevator and say, "No, we have business to take care of now. Your home visit here can wait."
I look to Ember, and then I look back at this person, and then I look down, and maybe the invite, if there's like a physical invite or at least some type of file, like maybe it's sitting by the doorway, and just sort of grab it and go.
Well, I think the invite is like she is not a real person. She is the invite that you need to circumvent, but you don't know that yet, I think. So like once you circumvent this obstacle, they become the data that is the invitation, is what I'm thinking. But I think what would be appropriate for this scene for either one of you guys, I would suggest doing an analyze move.
Yeah, sure.
Or a probe, depending on what kind of information. Do you want information from one another or about the situation?
Is it possible that I might know something about this? I think I have a move that I know something about the world.
Ooh, what would be kind of cool is what if you had like not a flashback, but you had like I've been here before, I've done this before, and this was how you got your original invitation to the store.
That's cool.
Right? So you've got like a sense of deja vu happening.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
And then I think I cut somebody off. Did somebody want to do a probe or an analyze or lift the veil or whatever?
Yeah, I'll analyze unless Ember is telling me that information. Like I still don't know what I'm still trying to
circumvent the problem.
Right.
I think Ember would want to watch you sweat it out just a little bit. I think it's one of those rites of passage where giving you the information is like taking something away from you. But I don't think Ember is doing that.
And you could still even be processing the information too, right? Like you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
here.
this is familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so give me an analyze then, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think I'm still sad that like this is not going the way it should.
Yeah, this is unraveling for you. And what is that? 8. Cool. So S2.
S2. I guess. What if anything appears out of place? And then what's my best way out, way in, way past?
Okay. So, Matthew, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Tell me what is out of place in the room, and then after that, Steve, tell me what is the way to circumvent this person. What is out of place that could kind of tip him off, right? That like for instance, this person's not real, right? So maybe there's not food or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is just like a very like super clean, immaculate apartment, right?
Yeah, like this whole complex is just completely immaculate aside from the bombarding of adverts like everywhere.
Right. And is this person still presenting as like a little girl?
Yeah, well, like the only thing that was like a little girl was the forehead and the pigtails. Below forehead, it's like a wrinkled old crotchety like grandmother with a smoke who's looking pretty pissed.
Okay. I think that there's like hollow photos on the wall that are of like the family that lived in this apartment beforehand, and the grandmother is like not present at all, and like the place just shows signs of habitation of like a full family, and this person, whoever they are, is not the person who's been living here, basically.
Cool. And Steve, what is the best way through this obstacle to get an invitation?
Yeah, you get the feeling that this person's an imposter or something like that, and you probably, if this is the way that you would normally get an invitation to the RAM, then what you would do is probably treat this person as one of the customers would. So that would be treat them as an object, or treat them as a, equivalently, this might be you just kill them and take the body. You just pick them up and walk out with them. You just treat them as if they are not a person.
Yeah.
So in a sense, you have to actually believe the truth about them. Okay, so knowing that information, what do you do?
I sort of palm her head.
Okay.
And twist.
Oh, okay.
Not like knowing that this isn't going to necessarily like snap a neck. This isn't real, right? But that this is like some canister of some sort that is that grants me access to the key, or to whatever invitation, however that gets represented in this digital space.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, you twist it and you pull up, and it becomes like a glowing light, circular cylindrical thing that you can just like carry around, and that whole image basically just goes right into that crystal. And what do you do? Actually, I think at that moment we go back to Pleasant in the store, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think Pleasant in the store is has just seen. I just got an alert that there is someone who is trying to access the place, and trying to bypass the firewall, and it kind of turns on the lid and sees, the person out there just kind of staring blankly. I think this is internally, it's adjusting to what the situation about what's going to go on, but it looks like someone is just staring blankly off into space, zoning out right in front of the place.
If I could add something there, I think what I actually do is that, because I'm being like thrown off so much by these different like frequencies and however I'm interfacing with the firewall, I sort of like get into this meditative state where I like open my mouth and I start humming, and it produces like this perfect fifth and this like wavelength that sort of like mellows me out, and I'm able to like attune to that and like block out all of these or like latch onto that as sort of like my anchor for stopping all this other stuff happening. So you hear this kind of just haunting, I don't know if you can hear through this stuff, but I'm just basically sitting out there humming to myself with my eyes closed and trying to
I think this frequency is recorded and filed away for use later, and then Pleasant kind of adjusts something within the veil, and the door, clicks a little bit, getting ready to open, to allow access.
Even virtually, maybe like this thing is happening and you're doing this to deal with the firewall, and then once the firewall like moves over you enough to actually hit the invitation, then that's when Pleasant's like cleared or whatever, right? So as you walk into this, I think let's say that you walk into like the main space of the random access memories, just because I want to get like a cool shot of what this is all like. So yeah, as you're walking through the door, paint me a picture here, Steve.
Yeah, so I think what this looks like is it's sort of like a cyberpunk version of the Eyes Wide Shut scene.
Oh, yeah,
you see this palatial, columns and curtains and very lush paintings and that kind of stuff, and there are sort of like side rooms, and it looks as though you can see inside them. All the patrons know that's not true. What you're seeing is a recording to entice you as you walk through and to excite you to see what kinds of things could happen. But it looks like you're walking through and you can see into each of these rooms. And I think that with it's Sonya, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Sonya.
I think with Sonya, Pleasant actually comes down. I think whenever he sees on the vid, he kind of rolls his eyes and artists and kind of walks down and escorts Sonya in and kind of shows her her residency. This is the location where you'll be taking on clients and where you can practice and stuff.
I think as soon as I see you, or sorry, do you just come straight up to me to meet me?
I think I wait just inside the doorway. So as soon as you come in, the door will close, and then that's where I am. Yeah.
Have we established that I've performed here before?
I don't think so. I think this is your first time, but I think we've communicated over the veil to get you your invite and to see what kind of information you can actually do. What kind of stuff you can actually do for the place.
Right. So I say, I think I'm kind of like flustered as I kind of just like stumbled through that doorway, basically after like forcing my way through, and I'm just like, not the most accessible place you have here.
Usually it's better for customers. I'm sorry that you had difficulty. I'm sure it will get better with practice, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that you can perform to the best of your abilities.
Well, at least you're accommodating, but shit, there's other people like me, and that wasn't a good time.
I'm so sorry about that. And I think we're kind of walking along the way. Again, there's a cacophony of things going on around. But I think whenever we reach the room, I interface and I have the hum that was playing outside inside the room whenever we step inside.
Oh, cool.
Right. Cool. I think that unnerves me a little bit too. That I wasn't expecting that to be turned around on me, because that was kind of a personal thing. I think that's kind of like what I used to zone myself, and like the fact that you just took it from me like that is like, I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, but that's what I do.
Can I? Is there how can I read here or something?
Sure, like read a person. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I want to. So I'm coming here for this job to perform for some high class folks, right? And I want to kind of get, now that I'm meeting Pleasant in person, I want to get a read on their character and like, what am I actually walking into? And now that they just did that thing to me, I'm like, I'm put off a little bit. So
sounds like you're probing them then, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I think I'm probing them.
Are you still afraid then?
Base. I think so, yeah. Yeah, I'd say so.
Racking up it,
Yep.
Get
stacking it up.
Okay.
I'm gonna roll. Sorry, oh, there it is. I was trying to find the reference stuff. All right, 2d6. Here we go. That's a 6.
Okay.
Is there an ask one anyways, or
it's up to me, but yeah, go ahead.
let me check the move out.
So actually, I have a move. I have a move that will get you to ask. That will allow you to ask a question that's kind of interesting.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So the move is I'm your priest, I'm your shrink, and I'm going to speak to you candidly and earnestly about Sonya. And basically what I'm going to say, and then there's a list of questions. And I ask one of you, and you answer honestly, and then you can ask one of me. And I'll tell you what the list of questions is here in a second. But basically, what the scene looks like is basically Pleasant realizes that things have gotten out of his control, and that you're uncomfortable here. And that's something that he just can't have within the store. So he sits down and offers you a chair. And I think that the room kind of blinks off, which is very unusual here, so that there's no distractions. And he says, I was hoping that we would be able to reach a mutual understanding, and that the clients that you're bringing in would be helpful to us both. And I think in order to understand what's going on, and how to best approach this situation, I think it's really important that I understand what you need out of this location, what you need out of this establishment in order to perform for these customers. So my question is, let's see. What do you wish I would do? What are you looking for from me?
What am I looking for? Well, in the interest of, what we had discussed earlier as a potential goal for our group as kind of like creating this haven, I want the store to be, because right now the store has a lot of like seedy upper class folk that come through to buy these memories, and as a venue that makes me kind of a little bit uncomfortable, because it's making a commodity out of something that I see as a reverent thing, sort of. So I think what I want is, instead of like these people coming through and getting me to kind of dance for them as just kind of like a simple kind of like just a physical kind of experience. Like it's almost like, taking mushrooms just to trip out, right? Like it's kind of just like the thrill of watching me perform. I want you to bring in people who I can really like connect with, and I want to start like I want to potentially use this as a place to expand my philosophy and the network of people that are sort of on board with what I'm trying to develop as the counterculture, sort of. So I guess it's like, change up your clientele a little bit, like start marketing to folks who are a little bit more wholesome or interested in, what I have to say, I guess.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you'd like for me to start a side business that caters to other clientele, which sounds awesome. I think you get to ask me a question from that same list, and I think Fraser put it into the chat.
Yeah, I posted it.
Yeah, I've got the your playbook up.
Also, I think that like as you come to that realization, you also get like the notification that somebody else has got an invitation from you, right? So it's an opportunity. Vellum has just got the invitation.
Okay.
Maybe that's some of the clientele.
What Ember, are you known at all to anybody? Like I guess your art is known.
So my information sort of broker services are known. My art is probably unknown to most people.
Do you have like an alias that like folks call you by? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but are you known by like another name?
I'll go with Bellwether.
Bellwether, nice one. Well, I think your art is gaining traction, and I want to know what do you think of Bellwether as a potential asset? Like, if we can find out who this person is, like, could you make them a part of your business or your venue in some way? Like, could they do work for you? Because I see them as, they understand what I'm doing, right? Like, this is a person that could be important to our vision here, or my vision.
Right. So I think what happens, the way that this looks, is you kind of see through the heads-up display that Pleasant has. And I think there's this little ting of, someone else has an invite, and then an ID that this is Ember that got the invite. And then off to the side, you see images of Ember's art, and, Bellwether information, is
oh shit. Okay.
coming along. And basically, I'm connecting up during our current conversation that there is a need for a secondary option. So what do I think of Bellwether's art? Okay, deep down secretly, it's beyond me. It's not something I can fully comprehend in its artistic sense, but I work with a lot of people who could comprehend it and could deal with it. My art is the information I deal with is very commonplace, or not necessarily commonplace, but almost sensational. Whereas the art that Bellwether deals with, I think, is more, true art. And I think that might actually be something that you would like.
Right. And
Mhm.
I think maybe that the way I kind of like perceive this is like basically because my senses basically are able to infer information from my other senses and kind of make a complete picture of what it is. So maybe you weren't intending to actually like broadcast that to me in some way, but either something that I saw or something that I heard was able to kind of fill in the rest of that stuff for me. And so you're basically saying that whether intentionally or accidentally, you sort of projected Bellwether's identity and information to me.
No, I think that what Bellwether's information came up when they accepted the invite, and I think I saw some of this artwork, and you saw, kind of through my expression and through your senses, that I didn't fully comprehend what that art was. Maybe you recognized some of that art, but I didn't fully recognize what it was and can't really fully comprehend it. So you can see that's
Right.
beyond me.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, and then let's go to Ember confronting Vellum. So
So
what do you
Vellum,
do?
your scene left off with you
He
basically getting the
just-
invitation.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to step through the door and give you a slow clap. Nice work.
I sort of slowly nod, recognizing the failure of this mission, and I say, "You knew, didn't you?"
I had my suspicions. Do you know what you have there?
No, I thought that this was something completely different. Do you care to enlighten me?
Maybe I should show you.
By all means, after you.
All right, so I'm picturing us making our way back to the elevator bank and riding down and making our way over to RAM.
To
To the shop, to the
to random access memories, right?
yeah.
It's like, who is RAM? Did I make that? did I make a person and forget about them? Oh shit. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We've got 55 minutes left. Let's make sure that all of you guys can do your things, like your primary moves. So I think it would make sense if the main sort of like job came to the store, since you guys are all about to congregate there anyway. I'm thinking that the way that we connect up, whatchamacallit, Ember and Sonia is going to be respective performances. And I think that Percipient is naturally predisposed to taking out people. Like, that's your thing, is like you're like a badass killer, basically, right?
Okay.
And then I really want to have a scene to do with this memory action, Steve, like you actually doing this, or perhaps the scene that we're angling for is you doing it to the person that you're going to cater to. I think maybe what would be interesting is forwarding time. Like, what we just did was maybe a snapshot of how you guys all got to know each other and became the crew. And then we fast forward to like a year later when you're comfortable with each other and you're planning this thing against this person who is coming. And that's when you guys get to all do like trigger your moves to pull off this thing, right? So
have we created a side hustle in RAM for a clientele?
Yeah, like a year later, maybe this clientele thing is already set up, and that, I think, is what draws in this whale to you guys, right? Like, nobody else has what what all of you guys can do together, right? Like, the denotation can sculpt the veil, and whatchamacallit, like, there's always that undercurrent of what Pleasant can do with memories, that it's probably more of a underground counterculture thing that only like the hip and happening people perhaps know about. and then the aesthetic is, you know, a truly unique performance, right? Like you can literally inflict humanity harm on people by performing. So I think you guys have already generated the buzz for this person. I'm thinking let's go with, oh wait, the company that we went with was Polides, is it? Is that
Polides? Yeah.
Polides?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna go with Porsche, but I don't want two P's. What do you guys want to name this this high up woman who's straight up white evil? Any good names coming to mind?
What about Washington?
Cool.
Is that her first name?
Maybe that's the only name she goes by.
Yeah, it could just be all like business people and higher ups. Maybe they only have the alias, just like hackers, right? Otherwise, y'all could get at them. So let's see. You guys have already hooked. I think it makes sense that Washington is already hooked on this clientele. Maybe now you're focusing on tailoring this experience for them. I really like mirroring Inception in this. Like you guys are doing this very intricate plan with the end goal, or maybe even throughout this whole experience, you're trying to incept her with this idea that there is a blind spot over here now forever, right? Yeah. How do you guys feel about that? Let's pull the table.
I like that. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to like do you want to expand on that idea of like the blind spot? Is that like, you know, where we could establish some sort of like, are we still going after the Haven Sanctuary idea, or is that kind of like tweaked a little bit? What do you guys think?
Yeah, what do you guys want?
So I like the idea that that's an area that, you know, through the, I like the idea that that's an area where we can just be ourselves and that we can be just honest and true. And I think that with this new establishment, that's probably put us in touch with other people that have the same kind of feelings, that the veil is false, reality is shaped into a false method, memories could be false, but we're looking for one place where people can just be.
Let's how you guys found out about this? Maybe somebody maybe traded a memory to you of this and you experienced it, and then that's how this idea of a safe haven exists. Like maybe it's like a black market memory kind of thing that has just come into your possession and you guys have all experienced it. Like I like the idea of pleasant, kind of like in Strange Days, right, where he watches this video that will blow everything wide open, except instead of it being a murder, it's like there's this area where the veil doesn't work, perhaps, right? Like it's actually, how about you guys tell me? So tell me one, like add a detail to this memory clip that you guys have watched that tell you that this place is safe and that that the veil does not function here, perhaps, if that's the angle that you're going for. Or perhaps it's like, if you want the veil to be there, to be controlled or tamed, or not being able to reach the other veil or whatever. What do you guys think?
Maybe
First, I have a quick question. Oh.
Sure. Sure.
I just wanted to ask Aaron about your characters, kind of about phase motivations, because I want to make sure that you're kind of on board, because it seems like the three of us have this like artist alignment thing, and I want to know what your angle is here. Is it like are you looking to profit off of it, or?
So I think that that Vellum is sad doing her job. She does not. There's no value in this for her, and is trying to find something true, something real, something concrete, and tries to find that perhaps in the wrong places. And I think actually one way we could do this is that this memory that has been stolen is maybe her memory, which like itself was some type of hope, some type of like beautiful space that she had to get removed because it was destroying her soul to have that existing alongside all this other like branded data that she has to store.
So I have an idea about that. What if the idea of this utopia, this empty space, this haven, is actually just that it's free of advertising? This place is
That's
unknown
what I was thinking.
world. Yeah. So I think, what about if the way that this is found is during Pleasant's harvesting, he's going through information and he finds like a crack den. There's a whole bunch of the equivalent of crackheads, and one of them has one of these recorded memories that seems a lot like the memory that had been extracted. So it kind of rings a bell. And the reason this person is a crackhead or taking drugs or completely lost to the world is because they're trying to get back to that place and they can't. So they're kind of erasing themselves through this addiction. And I think that's what would have happened to Vellum if they hadn't had the memory exercised.
Yeah.
I also had this idea that maybe there's like kind of a conclave of my people, my kind of hackers, and we found that together through our ability to shape the veil, that working in concert, we can actually shape it at such a rate that we can get ahead of the veil. It can't correct quickly enough. And so that's essentially how we can temporarily create this sort of haven. Maybe that's how we interrupt the advertising or the connection or something. But there's some sort of, but this memory is of an actual permanent haven or a way of lifting that veil. And so maybe we're looking for that sort of secret as to how to actually do that permanently.
Yeah, I like the idea of like a whole bunch of these sculptors literally using their hands to like remove a piece of the veil and move it and sort of subvert it, like the dark net for nice people, right?
Right. We cause recursions and loops and all that through shaping, but eventually the veil catches up. It gets past us. But that's sort of my character's vision of like using this ability in concert with some sort of technology or secret or memory that sort of unlocks that missing piece that can make this permanent.
Okay. Do you have a move that would be good to set this up with Washington then? Because you're sort of the person that can fuck with the gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
Fraser, did you still want to tell us about that memory from us?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. If you wanted to handle that first, we can do that.
Did you need to think about it first, Arthur, to grab a move?
I'm trying to see if there's a move that really makes the most sense for that. I don't know if that's an expose move or a subvert move, maybe. I guess subvert can pull out the meaning.
Well, you could decentralize information in that Washington thinks that she is going to one place, but she is going to their place now.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm cool with that idea. So yeah, so I can sort of, so is the idea that we're going to try to get her to come to random access memories?
I think so. Is everyone on board with that?
Yeah.
I
think like you guys all have like a clear role to play in it other than the percipient, who would be like, I like the idea of two things for the percipient. Either you being, we could do it so that as soon as she arrives, she's essentially going into a memory that you guys are going to craft beforehand, like Inception. And the percipient is like the person who's protecting the architect inside of it, right? Like you have to take care of threats as they're trying to, if she's the host of the memory, then you're taking care of the threats that are like, hey, this shit is not real, and you're just like poof, right? Or if it's like a physical thing and she's coming to the club and you're going to do this physically to her, then I'll probably have her come with some protection that you'll need to remove. Which one is more exciting to people?
the first sounds really cool, but it's totally up to Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I might as well do it in the Veil.
In the Veil? Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, you're okay with that?
Oh yeah,
Is,
yeah.
Like your technology working like that is all good?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's decentralize this and then be
Cool.
thinking of that memory, and then we'll just go into you guys actually crafting this scenario beforehand for what she walks into, and then all y'all can do that stuff up. Yeah.
All right. So I think I'm feeling powerful. This is sort of my world of shaping and bending reality, or the reality of the veil.
Mm-hmm. And is it like what do we see on screen for the movie? Like, how do people watching this movie know that when you're shaping this veil, you're moving information from one place to the other that she is viewing?
It's a good question. I'm trying to picture what that would look like. I mean, I'm trying to picture what information would get her to look where we want her to look. Does anybody have ideas on that?
I like the idea of like, if the thing that we're trying to incept her with is this concept of a haven, that there have to be multiple levels to that, and so there's the obvious, like, there's a duplication of reality as it currently stands, and then I'm thinking of something like Banksy's, because you mentioned Banksy earlier, like Banksy's Dismaland. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's actually, yeah, I'll post it. It's this idea of distorting Disneyland's sort of imagery and sort of highlighting the absurdity of this imagery that then requires her to retreat someplace. And then ultimately the place that she needs to retreat to is RAM and this haven that we've constructed, right?
Okay.
Interesting. Cool.
And are we doing this to get her financial backing, or like,
I think
what's the?
I think you're incepting her with this idea, and she is. Let's just say that she's the head honcho of like Discorp or whatever, right? And that's why you're subverting these Disney images. Is you want her to have a blind spot, which then translates to everybody else, because everybody with Discorp eyes need the information from Discorp servers, and Discorp servers completely miss this entire area. And since it's backwards compatible and they're the number one, everybody doesn't see this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So you were asking Arthur, like, how we could. What was your question exactly?
Well, so the move is to decentralize, which is moving information. I'm trying to connect how that's going to basically get Washington where we need her to be. So let me just clarify: we're trying to get her to
RAM
through the Veil access RAM, or are we trying to get her to go there personally?
Well, what if a simple way of doing it was if she's going to be flying some futuristic helicopter to wherever she's going or whatever. What if your hands like reach through the veil and actually craft the geographical area that her GPS is moving through? And by crafting the land, you're essentially saying like RAM is where she is going to be landing and needing to go to, right? Like you're sculpting, resculpturing the geography that is needed for the GPS.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think what I want to do with the GPS is that I want to basically reach through and black out every path that isn't to RAM. So essentially, it gets confused and it keeps correcting. Just like Google Maps rerouting until the helicopter goes in the right direction.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction, lady.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let's do this roll.
All right, cool. So dice and difficulty is normal, right?
Yeah, it would just be a normal roll. So,
And I'm using powerful for that, so no other modifiers. Okay. All right, so 10.
Wow, there you go. Okay, so you actualize your goal. Just tell me what that looks like.
Yeah, so it's basically that. So I'm going to say that I always carry some sort of organic shape with me, and so in my pocket I've got a stone, like a kind of a river rock, and I place it between my palms, and my hands glow, and my eyes close, and then from the vantage point of Washington, who's sitting in the passenger seat, she sees this like honeycomb holographic noise kind of go over the screen, and when it clears, the entire map is black except for this like very thin neon blue line that is leading toward random access memories.
Sweet. Oh, okay. So, out of character, we know that she's coming. Now, if we're going with the idea that as soon as she comes through RAM, she will be in like another, like inside the veil. And are we going with Inception, where it's like, Steve, your technology actually puts her to sleep and she's going through these layers and we're incepting her? Or is the hybrid reality making it so that you don't even need to do that? Like by going through these steps in the veil, it's the same thing as accessing her memory. Like is her steps through your place hacking her essentially, or what?
Yeah, so I think actually whenever she comes into this place, we've set it up so that she steps in and doesn't really notice any difference. But what she's doing is she's reliving a different memory as she stepped in, leaving her open to some kind of manipulation. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So the percipient, you're gonna be going essentially like jacking in somewhere and like putting your digital self image in her mind as she's experiencing this stuff then?
Yeah. Am I trying to scare her in a direction, or am I going back to the protection of...
What's the most exciting thing? I want you guys to, like, whatever the most exciting thing and interesting thing to wrap this up with, let's go with that. Let's take all your most excited ideas and do it.
All right, I'll kill some shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, so you're just going to be in her mind, like, and there's going to be puzzles and people and messing with that stuff? Or do you want to be like a physical reality thing, like the same dimension as everybody else and dealing with problems that way?
Maybe I don't know the distinction there. Maybe I'm missing the distinction.
Well, so Steve, is all these traps physical or mental?
No, I think a lot of these. I think so. Basically, what we're trying to do is get Washington to avoid this area, and therefore manipulate the veil so that it avoids this area. And I think that one of the ways to do that is to make this area so scary to her that she would avoid it in all ways possible. So I think that part of this is going to be the scary attack that comes from the percipient, and possibly scary art that comes from the other people, or scary memories that we inject, things like that.
Oh, okay.
How does that sound?
Cool. So it's like as she's moving through your space, it's like a fun house mirror of horror shit, basically.
Yeah, I think
she's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
But I think what actually happens, I think we're dealing with her subconscious. She steps into the RAM, and she has a memory of just walking through and having a normal experience. However, we're going in deeper into her memory and scaring her and giving her scary memories at a subconscious level that she doesn't really recognize.
Okay, cool. So
yeah, I think we're just trying to create like these like horrifying neural associations that like when she ever thinks of this place, it's just like basically as many subconscious bad connections to this idea as possible that can inseminate into everybody else's subconscious as well.
Okay, so I think essentially, it would work if you guys did your moves to handcraft these experience, and then the pneumologist would essentially inject these experiences into her via like memories, right? And the percipient, I think, would be same thing, like crafting a sort of like a program that kills the things in her subconscious that would make her not believe it, right? So I think the most interesting thing for the percipient to do is interact with each of your guys's memories.
Yeah.
Like if you have a failure or something, I'll say like, oh shit, this is happening, and the percipient can be like, right? So who has an idea for the experience that you're crafting for her? And we'll
memory that we experienced in the first place that inspired us to do this is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
If we
Yeah.
want to talk about
Do
that.
people have ideas about that? What is this space? What is this memory that has convinced you all that this is so important, right? Like you're putting, if you fuck this up, like she'll just get you dead, basically, probably, right? Like she's one of the most high up people ever. So it must be something fairly convincing and in order to inspire this hope.
And we're not necessarily saying that it is here, or are we saying that it's RAM that RAM that is the place that we're trying to make protected, right? Like, is this the sanctuary we're trying to establish?
I don't think so. I think that the RAM is too showy. I think we're looking for another place. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I thought you were talking about it as if it was. Okay.
Do we want the memory to be some sort of like natural area, like nothing grows here anymore? Maybe it's like a forested area or something like that, something that just feels very, very peaceful, where basically the veil couldn't exist.
I was thinking that it was, or I was thinking that it could be like a natural environment where the veil still exists, but whatever causes the adverts to be encoded within the veil and requires us to perceive them at all times is disrupted in some way. Because one of the thoughts that I had, and something that I think would inspire Sonia, was this vision of people around like a fire, like dancing, like kind of like a reverie or like a party almost, like they're reveling in something. And like these people are, a lot of them are artists as well. And I think it's almost like a dance circle type vibe where like someone will go into the center, and because the veil is uninhibited in this way and we have kind of like total access to it and are able to manipulate it a lot easier than when it's locked down in the way that it is in society normally, these people are able to go in and sort of, express themselves in whatever way they choose to with the veil, right? So, someone jumps into the center and starts doing this like beautiful twirling dance, and you see these like ribbons of light like appear all around them and sort of like twist up and form these different like beautiful spectrums of color. And someone else jumps in and with a drum and starts beating out this rhythm that like everyone that projects like externally to everyone and creates these like vibrant feelings and images and stuff like that. Just a whole bunch of different things like that. And you guys can feel free to tweak that. I didn't want to get too, but I just like the idea of some sort of like place where we can celebrate and express ourselves.
Sure. Well, Steve was even saying or implying that maybe there's many of these memories, right? And they're sort of driving people mad because they're looking for the space or trying to continually get that fix or whatever, right? So whatever stuff that comes to mind, just it could be a completely separate memory of the same space or playing off one another, whatever you guys want.
Are we trying to incept her with that memory, with the memory of a safe space?
No, this is just the memory for you guys so we know that why your characters are inspired enough to do this, to take the leap to like put this on the line against a fat cat, essentially, to do this and make this space.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be a personal thing for each of us, right? Like, what's the thing that you see? What's the idea that you have of this sanctuary that makes it worth like creating and going through all this work? Like, what is the important thing for you guys?
Mm-hmm. And for what should we call it? For Vellum, it could be like a flashback of that actual memory that you lost as well, right? So think about that. Does anyone else have one?
If you want to, like, you could also add a detail to, you know, the thing that Sonia saw. Like maybe it was this big event that, you know, was held somewhere, and there were different aspects of it and different things happening at that place. But it's if you have ideas.
Nobody's thinking of stuff. Okay, well, we'll just if you have an idea while we're doing the other stuff, then just chime in and say like, "Hey, I've got an idea about what that memory could be for me," or whatever, right? Like whatever the experience is.
That could be a cool way to frame them up, is like when we're going through a strenuous situation, we remember what's important to us or something like that kind of thing. Like, you know, it'd be a way to like cut in these little scenes in the movie of like, you know, this is what this person saw that inspired them to do this thing. And we kind of get, you know, impressions from everybody while we're carrying out the mission.
Something came to mind to me. I think I have a memory of as a young denotator being in a circle of my fellow shapers and them showing me what it was like to exist in a space that was sort of like disconnected. And so it was like, you know, 10 seconds of this, like, you know, I stood in the middle of a circle, and as they shaped for the first time in my life, like the constant buzzing and the noise went away, and what I saw was completely free of overlays and holograms. It was all very tactile, very real. It reacted, you know, in just a very naturalistic way. And I kind of equate it to like when I saw Avatar in the theater, like on the big screen. I was like, oh my God, this world is so immersive. I'm like in it. And then I walked outside afterwards. I'm like, oh, there's a parking lot there, you know? And sort of the same deal there. I had that one moment of perfect bliss, and then it was gone. And that's like the memory that I'm chasing.
Mm-hmm. Ever since then, there's always been like the hum of the city and the power lines and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and there's always just like some overlay, some light that is covering every possible surface, making it different, making it, you know, more idealistic or just, you know, sharper. And yeah, I'm looking for that natural moment again.
It's the same feeling for me too, except like more so towards the advert stuff, but like that same feeling of being disconnected from that and being able to, you know, just have freedom over the veil itself. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so does anyone else have a thing, or push on to the masterminding?
I think mine is
Mm-hmm.
mine is a power outage that like actually happened, that shut down the entire veil, but that everybody forgot. That's but somehow I remembered that. Like that got stored in my cyber spine or whatever.
Interesting. And that was the thing that you needed excised from you,
Right?
Because that's cool. Okay, neat.
I've just got to use the washroom super quick. I'll be back in 2 seconds, but you guys can start talking about the moves that you want to set up as well. I think what I'm going to be doing is like a soundtrack kind of thing that's going to amplify certain elements of her experience, because you know, I can sort of project different reactions to things. So like when she hears a certain thing, she's going to feel this way. So it's all about like taking, you know, whatever somebody else sets up for her and really kind of manipulating her reactions to those through my art as well, probably. But we can talk about that in a minute.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so does anyone have an idea for what they want to do to her, for lack of a better word. So for Pleasant, your move would be the actual like making her go into this place to begin with, right?
Yeah, so I think. Yeah,
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, why don't we see how that goes? Because if it becomes complicated, that'll be interesting.
Yep, it could easily become complicated. Oh, good. Okay. So in this case, I think what's going on is Pleasant's view of this Haven area is an area of truth, an area. So he's developed a flavor as he imagines, as he sees all these memories, he can almost taste what reality tastes like whenever he experiences it, and that's what he sees from these memories. This just rings of truth, almost in a different sensual way. So basically, this is the Magic Man move. Okay. And what he's doing is Pleasant is crafting the memories to then implant into Washington. And I rolled the feeling. I think that so the reason I went into that is Pleasant is feeling scared. He wants to be able to experience the truth. He wants to be able to experience reality, and it's scary to not. So I think he's scared, and I rolled a 10 plus 1 is 11.
Nice.
So I choose 3. So I think the most important thing is the memory clip will not degrade over time.
Okay.
And I think that I think my own memory is unmodified, and the memories of the other people that I'm injecting. And there's someone I wouldn't want finding, out about this can't locate it.
Cool. Okay. And that's kind of nice too, right? Because making it valuable in the end would maybe like even cheapen it a little bit. So
yeah,
cool.
And draw attention to it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have so we know, like, let's kind of craft the scene as each person's thing is going. So we already have her at the location. We've got like a Black Hawk that is super futuristic and like a VTOL and all that kind of stuff, right? She lands and she goes through the door and it goes off without a hitch, right? She walks through, and for the viewers, we can kind of see like maybe like a little film or something like that she walks into, and everybody is kind of clued into the fact that she is in like the subconscious of herself now. So what's the next thing that she sees? Does anyone have an idea?
I think that we actually see her body collapse, but you see this image from her like she's walking down the hallway, and she's continuing to walk down the hallway, but we see her body collapse, and then the memories.
It's because Americans couldn't parse it otherwise, right?
Right. Establishing shot, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she's not actually there. Okay.
Yeah.
I
was thinking it might be interesting to feed her the sort of sense of drowning, just to like strip away her sort of outward like fight and appearance, and really she's just fighting for air. So maybe for her, like we see a scene of her looking down at her feet, and maybe she's wearing like really nice shoes, and like water starts to sort of like fill up, and it's like it's coming up to her ankles, and it's filling really quickly.
Cool. And then is that you're doing a move on her?
I guess that doesn't really track to one of my moves.
Well, you could be subverting her for sure, right?
That's true. I was just gonna say, yeah. I think I'll do a subvert move then to sort of conjure that visual, that sensory experience.
Is she like drowning in adverts? Like, do the adverts become liquid and she's like drowning on them and shit?
Yeah, maybe what she sees on the walls is just a thick, overlay multiple advertisements on top of each other, all of them calling her attention. They're all bright and bold, and then they like melt off the walls, and it's like this Technicolor neon glow, and that starts to just like wrap around her legs and fill up her space.
Cool. Okay, yeah. Let's see how this goes.
All right, I'm gonna roll it.
How you feeling about torturing someone?
You know, I'm feeling. I guess that would make me feel. I think sad. I think I'm gonna go with sad on that one. I feel like this is like a more aggressive subversion move than I'm used to doing, and I'm not used to impacting people specifically, like targeting someone. It's more of like an impression. So
right, that's fair.
All right, so I'll do sad. All right, here we go. All right, 7.
7. Okay, so that gets you 7 to 9. Same, but the MC chooses. Oh, that's nice. Ooh.
So the meaning is misconstrued by others. There's an unintended effect, or there's a cost or complication. Interesting.
Yeah, the unintended complication is that I'm gonna lean super into Inception here and say that like she's been conditioned against this thing, right? And she has like mental blocks, except the mental blocks are other representations of her digital self. And as she's sliding down, Vellum, you see, like, I think you're watching all of these memories, right? Like you're sort of like that. These better not fuck up. And what happens is one of her other selves, like you see the businesswoman start drowning in this stuff, but then you see like a militaristic businesswoman grab her and try to like bring her up while another one is like keeping watch. And I think that, let's see, what are your moves here? What would be interesting? Well, for one, if you have any ideas about the scene, you could use Soak It Up. So when you arrive in a new place, tell everyone about any local customs, traditions, or aspects, and just say, like, what about this reality that she's in is completely different, and then you could take +1 forward on the next moves.
Yeah, I think what I want, I think in this space, it's not just the ads that are fluid, it's she herself that's fluid. And so it's not that she's drowning, it's that she's, as this brand liquid sort of rises, that she herself is dissolving into the liquid. And so trying to, I guess the goal is to try to get her to liquefy, even like both personalities or both avatars.
Cool. Okay, so what do you do?
I want to. Okay, so I have a kinetic assault burst rifle, and so I imagine that as like as this sort of like forceful act, like this forceful percussive event that sort of slams her back against the wall in the hope that that she liquefies, right?
Okay, cool. It sounds like you're being probably risky. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, either neutralizing or risking. Are you trying to inflict harm, or is it something else?
I think I'm trying to inflict harm. I mean,
cool. Okay,
yeah.
So let's neutralize it up then. So how do you feel about, like, are you also scared in this space where it's like?
No, I think I'm fairly confident, at least at this early stage. I think I'm feeling fairly powerful about our plan. It's all going according to plan so far. So
cool.
I'm cool with that.
Let's hope that continues.
And it does once again.
Oh, what?
That's a 10.
Oh, wow. Okay, so just tell me what happens.
So I think this would be impress, dismay, or frighten your opponent, and to take away an advantage. So maybe the advantage being this this alternative that's split off from her.
Right.
Like eliminate that and allow the other personality to, or the other her to become frightened by this construct that we've created and sort of dissolve into the brand.
Right, the comfort is removed.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And so, like, on screen, does your weapon, like you said, it looks like a percussive force that just like bursts it apart, basically?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm. I don't know what the physical space looks like, but I feel like I'm sitting on a pedestal, like the type of pedestal that that Ember would use to like display some type of art installation, and I'm just sitting there like an art installation myself, and then I'm just watching this unfold, and then as I see this this splitting, I just draw this weapon, take aim, and let her sort of liquefy, slam back and liquefy, flatter against the wall.
Are you like, yeah, I'm just curious, what do you feel when she's like liquefying, right? Like, are you sad about it, or you're like, this is so abstracted, I don't even give a fuck, really?
I think peaceful. I think there's a sense that this is what we've come to do. I am like, this is the realization of the dream for the past year, and that this is the job that I've been tasked with, and I'm okay with that job.
Nice. Okay, cool.
So I have a question. What exactly have we established about her company in particular? Did we say anything about it?
Her, like, if anyone came with her?
No, I mean about like what she's actually the head of.
No, I don't think I think we said that it was a big advertising company head, right? And
Right.
I think in megalomaniacal corporations, it's probably like a head corporation that does many things. It's probably like DizCorp, which is also the biggest ad corp, which is also the biggest movie company, which is also whatever, right? Like it's just eating up all this other companies.
So what does the room look like that you were in when you kind of performed this attack on her, and she and her other self kind of liquefied into this Technicolor goop?
I don't think we decided that, but I think if we're looking at it from the perspective of this is RAM, that maybe this is that Eyes Wide Shut type of room with these massive columns, almost like museum-like, or if not that, then a museum of some sort, like that kind of sterile pillared column kind of space.
Oh. That's cool, because everyone's on those tables in that shot, so maybe she's liquefying and the camera pans to a shot where it's the table, and below the legs there's nothing, it's just empty space, but then above it she's like liquefying into this like portal that is the table.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I was thinking that as she liquefied, she would kind of whatever that goop stuff is could either drain either through like a trap door or through some other portal. Do you want to explain the table thing a little bit better so I can visualize that? Like,
no, that's fine. Maybe part of the nightmare is the table becomes a drain in which that she drains down to another level or something like that, if that's what you're going for. Yeah,
that's totally what I'm going for. And I think she appears in this very clean room that is actually I think it's pitch black except for like whatever neon Technicolor haze that this material stuff gives off, as we see it kind of like drip down from the ceiling and form onto the ground, and kind of I like the idea that we're sort of like eroding her sense of self a little bit, like we're pulling all these different parts of her and kind of breaking them down, right? So now when she reappears, she's a much younger version of herself, like around the age she would have been when she started working at the company that she worked at, or like when she got her first really big promotion kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's
and
great.
we see Sonya in this black room, and the idea is that it's totally dead silent. There's no senses, there's nothing you're able to perceive at all in this room, except for just because it's the movie, we see her, and she's got her, if you see the picture, she's got her hair kind of like that blue and purple color, but otherwise she's wearing this black bodysuit that it gives off light, but the light is it's like very neutral and kind of just in this very simple pattern all throughout the bodysuit. And she starts to perform her art, and I think implanted in her chest is kind of like almost like an Iron Man type core thing, and that's what actually powers the instrument that she's able to kind of manipulate the wavelengths with her entire body. So she starts to she's just standing there kind of like face down, and then as soon as Washington kind of forms into the room, she begins, and right before it starts, it's like total pitch silence in the shot, and then we just hear this horrible dissonant, just like string attack of like 4 different cellos at the same time, all with like within a semitone of each other, and it's this horrible like jarring sound as she slashes her arm kind of across, and she continues in all these like really aggressive movements that we didn't actually get to see before. Like maybe the shot of her performing before was like really gentle and just kind of to produce a certain type of experience for whoever it was. This time it's very visceral, and it's an attack, right? And so the way this art works is that she's not actually producing the images. She's manipulating the sound in a certain way that her brain is going to produce the images herself. So she's like diving into the consciousness of Washington, and then all of a sudden we shift to her perspective, and we can see what she's actually experiencing with each of these sounds, right? As the soundtrack starts to build, and it's this kind of like, I don't know if you guys know what a theremin is, but like it's got this like haunting kind of wailing sound to it, and there's like all of these very, like I said, very dissonant, very eerie, jarring, jagged pitches, and it's just very discordant. And I think she starts to experience like so I like the idea that the sounds are able to actually use her memories and leverage them against her. So she is she's like seeing these like
feel.
Yeah, she's seeing like these twisted, distorted versions of some of the like CEOs and different like folks that she had to deal with in order to gain her position. And we see like all of the mascots for the different brands that she is like responsible for kind of manifest within the room and are slowly like stalking and dragging themselves towards her and like kind of like decomposing and stuff. And it's this like weird like body horror. Like I definitely want to play into the Disney thing that you kind of just brought up. It's like this cartoonish, horrifying nightmare basically of all of the things that she propagated into the world and forced down everybody's throats are like turning back on her and slowly like suffocating her and surrounding her. So I think this is a mad roll.
Okay,
there's a lot of pent-up rage here,
but you describe it so calmly, so peacefully.
Yeah. Is this truth is beauty, beauty is truth?
I think so, yeah. It is very personal, but I feel like the results for Beauty is Truth make a little more sense than Literacy of the Heart.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
So
too. Mad it up.
So madden it up. That is a 7.
7? Okay.
Yes.
So choose 2.
So I'm looking at option number 4. The experience begins to change popular opinion or alter sense of self. However, that consumes 2 choices, and I'm pretty interested in inflicting some humanity harm here.
Well, I think that'll begin to change people anyway, right? That's the idea of humanity harm anyway. So
yeah, and
so humanity harm
maybe that people understand what it is you intend to convey, which is kind of the maliciousness of the constant intrusion of this advertising. I really want it to be a feeling of like being taken advantage of, and maybe have that belief to start to spread amongst people so that they're more willing to look for freedom from that oppression.
Cool. Okay. Well, for one of the options of humanity harm is missing time, and I think we can abstract that to missing number one this time, right? Because I think it'll be like a subconscious thing where she is just like you guys say, right? Like, I am not coming near this fucking place ever again. I get turned into a seed if I go here. So, but yeah, then she just for all time will like lose time of this place and space. Did everybody get to do a thing against her though? I'm trying to think. Yeah, cool. So we've got a little bit of time. We only have 2 minutes, but if people want to do a short epilogue, that would be cool. If you guys want to wrap together the movie with some final scenes.
And maybe, does anyone have any idea of how we transition out of that scene and we see her kind of like break down and end the experience? Like, does she wake back up again and like, or do we just cut there? That could be cool too, right?
Yeah, it could be just a cut to the. I guess it depends on if people have specific scenes in mind for their ending vignettes, I guess. But I'm down with either one as well.
I like so I've got this move called Make It Personal, which is when you genuinely attempt to connect with another for the first time by sharing something new about your training and what it entailed, including how it changed you as a person, for better or worse. You both mark XP. Okay. I know that that's geared towards another PC.
Well, that's fine.
But I think that there's a space to like maybe Vellum takes Washington's body back, and there's like as she wakes up, they're both sitting across a coffee table in her apartment, and she's like, let me tell you a story about the time when the veil shut down. And the space that provided for us all. This was such an overwhelming experience for me that I couldn't stand it, and I gave that memory up. Now I'm taking it back, Goonie style. I'm taking them all back.
Goonie style, yeah. Okay.
And that's what I got.
Nice,
sweet, love it.
I think that I would like to have a scene with Ember where I want to. It was Bellwether, right? So I think maybe we're sitting together in one of the side rooms of the RAM or something. This could be after the experience or something like that. And I think I want to show the gentle, like, personal side of my art here, and I want to provide a performance, but it's almost more like a treatment or like a therapy session for Ember, where I kind of like encourage him and sort of show him what he could be capable of and how he could, how he could be like an embodiment or a paragon of self-expression and creativity for people to kind of model themselves after, because the very nature of his art is in such stark opposition to the imagery that we've gotten for the whole movie of the adverts and stuff like that. I want to basically sit him down and, perform this and really kind of like draw on. I want to bring out his strongest visions of creativity, right? Like, I want my music to be able to conjure images for him that can inspire him and show him what the future could look like if he kind of accepts his fate, sort of. And that could be literacy of the heart to see how that goes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a move.
Yeah, no, this is a cool scene. So I'm thinking that you are, as part of this conversation, you're actually performing, and I've got maybe some overlay that is of like clay, and as you're performing, I'm sort of letting the music shape the the clay, so the music is basically guiding my hands, and you're while you're performing, it's kind of a casual performance. You're also talking, and you're talking about what this future could look like. And I think the camera I'm sort of looking down as I'm doing this, and I'm very silent, and I'm just letting sort of the art take shape. And then the sort of closing shot after you sort of make your case is I look up and I smile, and it cuts to black.
Is this the first time that you've ever smiled in it too?
I think so. I think that my character doesn't really show a lot of emotion. I think the sort of top emotion I took was peaceful, and so I think that that would be very, very telling. Like, yeah, it's time. I'm convinced by this conversation and the events that we just went through.
Could it be cool maybe if we saw like as you were sort of forming the clay, we saw like vague outlines of like what it like looked like it was going to be, and then maybe we cut the scene there. But I like the idea that like us together in this like concentrated, therapeutic, like artistic, creative environment, we're able to create like the new symbol of the counterculture, and like maybe we start to see this thing in a lot of different places as kind of like, you know, our flag in the ground or whatever, our banner of resistance. Do you have an idea of what it might look like? Or like,
maybe it forms like some sort of like bird shape, like a phoenix, or some sort of like a phoenix is like a rebirth.
I like that it's something really personal to Ember too, because the idea of my art is I bring out like, you know, your own sense of self-expression. So like, how can you tie that in a little bit to your backstory to like make that really
maybe that symbol is really my maybe that's the one sort of calling card that you see on all of my pieces. It's Ember. It's like, you know, the phoenix rising from the ashes. It has this sort of fire theme to it, and so maybe I've included some sort of flame motif into most of the sort of pieces that are seen by the public in my sort of Banksiness, and so this is sort of the outward expression of that, the next evolution of that flame, of that subversion is this embodiment of the spirit.
So there was always a flame on your pieces, but now there's a phoenix rising from the flame.
Right.
And the people that rewatch this movie at the beginning, when we go through all the city pieces, they're like, oh shit, there's some fire right there.
Yeah, the freeze frame.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
I think we might have even seen like, sorry, real quick, just in that memory that I had of the people dancing around a fire and kind of like creating their own images, like within that fire, we saw like the vague shape of a phoenix or something at one point, just kind of like not a phoenix, but like a bird, like alluding to that in the future or something.
Cool.
So I think that Pleasant's epilogue looks something like what we see on screen is Pleasant sitting, you know, back at the RAM, kind of behind a desk, you know, doing normal kind of stuff. And then you see him kind of stop for a second. And what you see is he's actually continuing the business of the RAM, and this side business where more artistic patrons come through, and that's how we find more people to populate this haven that we found. They understand better about what needs to happen, and I think that Pleasant's kind of sitting behind his desk doing this and shepherding, you know, deciding whether or not this is a good candidate for entry into the haven and things like that. And then you see him kind of stop, and he puts on this pair of glasses that you can see in the image on Roll20, I think, that basically just blots everything out. You see him stand there for a little while, and you know, the camera kind of zooms in, and then you see his view, and his view is of the haven, and it's a replaying of his memories while he's been in the haven for some short period of time, and then he had to come back into the RAM. And then the camera zooms back out, and you see a tear kind of come down his cheek.
One single tear.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So the movie like zooms into the tear, and then it's over, and the credits start rolling.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, that was super cool.
I hope everyone enjoyed it, even in the one-shot format. What I'd kind of like to know, though, is knowing now, you know, what experience you got from it. Would you have would you have preferred a tailored experience, or doing this from scratch and getting a little less RP, but getting to actually make a character, essentially, right? What do you guys think? Would you have preferred us to do like Glitch City or whatever and have like a really tailored experience, or prefer this?
Personally, I think that I like the idea of a middle ground where a quick start often feels too filled in and prescribed for me, but I really like the idea of you know, guiding questions or a vague group identity or some sort of thematic coherence that we can kind of all build our characters around. Like if like the idea, kind of like dungeon starters in Dungeon World, except like less about the, you know, the adventure that we're about to go on and more about like a few, you know, populating the world with just a couple ideas to kind of provide a little bit of constraints and maybe a little bit of a focus or a general thrust for the group, but still leaving us a lot of space to make our characters, you know, make our motivations. But it would just kind of prevent some of the wishy-washiness of like, what is our goal? Because like we got there and it was super cool, but you know, we could have hammered that home a little more if we had just kind of a few more guiding principles, right? Like just a really general framework, I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. That having it be completely free form, especially because the session is pretty short, it sort of forces us to either just go with the idea that was just stated because it's going to take a lot of time and we don't really have the room to breathe in order to in order to flesh that out, or to fall back on tropes. And so I think having that like basic framework and then sort of building off of it, whether that is a little bit at the beginning of the session or during the session too, to establish, you know, things that are happening in the world and in the fiction, I think would probably create a little more of a cohesive game.
Okay.
I enjoyed the character building part of this, and I think, yes, I mean, I agree with the sense. I felt a little lost because of my own stuff. My dog was freaking out when we just started, and
Okay.
I'm hungry, and I just come off of some Dungeon World, so like getting into the right headspace took me a little bit longer than I would have liked. But I think what I enjoyed about this is seeing what the process of building a character in Cascade looks like. And so if Cascade is supposed to be a little bit more, I know that you wanted to play test some of the character, like these playbooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, I think that this was a very like, this is probably, hopefully for you, this was like a good experience of like seeing how people like think of or work with those things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, then it wasn't the sort of like tightly run, like, all right, this is the mission, and here's a mission clock, and here's like you gotta get down from the top floor to the bottom floor. Like it's not yeah, so it's not gonna have that feel. But I think what I found enjoyable about it was watching other people like design these characters. And also one of the things that what I really love about the Veil, but I'm terrified of running it with more than one or two people, is that each of these characters is so unique and brings in this completely like distinct like set of assumptions about the world and a set of like archetypes, and like it doesn't fit into the same schematic of the three other RPGs that I know, where like people come together as a team. And so one of the things I felt like with the Percipient is that I felt like, both because I wasn't quite understanding what I was doing, but also because you guys were all generous, like there wasn't a way to easily fit that character in to that into that framework until the very end, once we had like the mission set, and I was like, okay, that's how I fit into this little thing, right?
Right.
So
what I got,
loved it. Sorry,
yeah.
Steve.
No, that's fine. Did I interrupt?
Uh-uh.
Okay. So what I got was, so it all, in my opinion, it all depends on what you wanted to show off or what you wanted to experience, and see how things worked. I think that putting out the playbooks early and kind of giving us access to them to kind of get used to them. I didn't see them until I think today. And I started looking through them and was like, oh, I get a better feel for what this is going to be like now. And kind of got me thinking about the character a little bit. So by doing that, it meant that we didn't have to have the characters as fully fleshed out like in a pre-generated form, because I've been thinking about it a little bit. And I think that we went through kind of world creation for a while, and playing through that is sort of like world creation is play and character creation is play. And, seeing how those steps go through there might have been something you needed to see for the playtest itself. Right?
Yeah, well, and it's just my play style. Like, you can tell from how the Veil is written that I like those moments where it's genuinely emergent for you guys, right? Where those little small moments are like, oh shit, what if this? And everyone's like, oh shit, yeah, right?
Our whole story was about advertising, right? It was all about adverts and all that kind of stuff, which was completely new, and I like that.
Yeah, it comes up with something really new. It gives you guys less playtime, but my goal for this was kind of to abridge the entire process of what I do for the Veil in a 3-hour time slot and still come to a unique ending while everyone's just trusting each other that we can abstract it, right? When it's an hour to go, I'm just like, okay, I think this is how it's gonna all fit together. What do you guys think? Let's hit on all of your things and then just do it and pop it. Yeah, so it just depends. Sometimes people would rather have those guidelines and the guardrails to just feel safe doing creative input. And other times, for me, I think in my mind, I'm always like, well, I have like some pretty cool scenarios. What if that's just not what people want into, right? For Cyberpunk today, like if I prepared Ghost in the Shell and you just saw Blade Runner and you're like, oh, I wish this was more Blade Runner. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a trade up. So it was an interesting experiment. Hopefully, even though it was abridged and people were floundering a bit, hopefully everybody had a good time still.
Absolutely.
Oh
yeah, it was a ton of fun.
It was fantastic. It was great playing with all of you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great.
I've never played with any of you. I've only played games with Fraser before, but it was great seeing you guys.
Nice. Yeah, I hope we get to play again soon.
I thought all of you guys were great. The characterization was perfect. If we had a little bit more time, we'd linger in the details. Like, I would have really hit home more on Washington and made her like a real person, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then we could have lingered on you guys some more and hit some more moves, but
so that's actually something that I've noticed playing with the Gauntlet. I play a lot of conventions, never online conventions, but I play in other conventions before. And you get a taste for the game and all that kind of stuff, but you don't get that development. And I played in home games before that go on for months and months, but never. And they seem to drag out a little bit. And I think the Gauntlet, the online play that we have, does a really good job of you play 4 or 5 sessions that lets you have a character arc. It gets all the things that you were just talking about, Fraser, out, so you can experience some of those, and then you start something new.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you can come back to it later in a few months and all of that. But I think just because this is a con, we had a short, let's see what this game is like and all that. Yeah.
I think it's a testament. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I think it's a testament to the Veil as this incredibly very in many ways very accessible, because you're playing with emotion, right? Like you're rolling emotions. It's not you're not trying to learn like a whole new set of what is my dexterity again? You just roll how you feel, and in that way it's very accessible. But it's also very high concept, right? Like we're dealing with incredibly complex issues in some really fascinating and creative ways. But they're also very abstract concepts, and they're also embedded layers of concepts, right? And then we're incepting concepts into ourselves as we're incepting concepts into a character, right? And I think that one of the things that's so beautiful about the Veil is that that's what the game requires you to do. You can't do anything but that, because all of these characters operate on that very abstract, multi-layered process,
Framework.
I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I think a tool that might be helpful for like one shots is like when I started the game, I was, you know, vaguely aware of what the other playbooks did, but I think having a like a brief introductory phase where everyone kind of talks about this is the big thing about my character, this is what I want to highlight in the fiction about my character. I definitely want to have a scene where I do this, and then being a little bit more aware of like what are the capabilities of the other playbooks, because like Aaron said, they're all very complicated and they all have a lot going on, and they all are not. If you're familiar with the source material, it's a little easier. But if you're not, they're all these very abstract concepts that are not always easy to reach out and tie into your own story, I guess. So if I was maybe a little bit more aware of what was behind the nomologist, I could have like incorporated that a little bit more. But one of the things that I think works really well is that each of the moves of each of these playbooks is almost like a scene built in, like it's automatically like prompts you to frame an interesting scene that's going to get you interesting fictional consequences or results. And that's what I like about your writing is all of your moves, Fraser, like there's not much just like number pushing or whatever. Like every move that you roll, you're going to get something good out of. And that ties in really well to the states, because you're forced to think about, how is my character feeling in this scene? And then that's going to inform the results as well. So I think in that way, it's really helpful. But I also do think that there might have been, while we were doing character creation, like we didn't even really get to a lot of the questions or a lot of the cybernetics and stuff. So maybe in a 3-hour slot, you want to kind of like find a way to refine that a little bit. Like just everyone get one question, everyone pick one piece of cybernetic gear or something and make it like a big part of the story, rather than kind of like going through the whole process and then a lot of the stuff not being super relevant because we don't it's not obvious to tie it into the fiction, I guess. That's
yeah, sweet. Great, thanks.
Yeah, which is also what you did with the moves too, right? Like you told us at the outset, you don't need to pick your moves, just use 3 or 4 of them over the course. Like you could do the same thing with your cybernetics, with your gear. Like we never had to use any of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Like just as you need it, just boom, you've got it. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah, the session was really story game feeling as far as just like framing up a scene around a move, rolling dice, getting the consequences, and then like, oh, here's, what happens, right? I like that.
Sweet. Cool.
Very good.
Does anyone else have some stuff?
Can I ask you, did you get out of this what you wanted to? Like, what did you get to see from the playbooks that you might have been thinking about?
Oh, no. Yeah, like I got what I wanted out of them. All of the playbooks are like ingredients, right? So as soon as you guys choose what you're doing, I'm just like, here's my prep where I'm just like, here's what you chose. And then over here, I'm just like, here's some questions. And then I just put them in the fiction. That's it. So, yeah, like the game is very much geared towards everybody having their own separate stories that sort of meander together over a course of a few sessions or at least one full session, right? So that is a little bit troublesome, but as soon as you guys pick the stuff that you want, I kind of know where the story is going and what it's going to be highlighted. And for me, the most exciting thing is when we do have those moments where we're like, oh shit, this fits into this because you guys thought of that or whatever, right? So that's the most exciting thing is this mostly what this game playtest was for was to see if the emergent stuff that I built into the playbook happened, and it all did. Like all of the stuff you guys were like, oh shit, this ties into that, this happens here and that. So yeah, it's a high concept game, but as long as you guys have faith in yourselves and in your characters, and you abstract the things and make sure that you're communicating, saying like, man, I really have this move that I'd like to fire off. What do you guys think about a scene about this, and let's just make it happen. So yeah, I had a great time. I thought everybody's characters were great. Yeah, it was very helpful in terms of playtesting. It's pretty much over for playtesting wise now. It's pretty much written up, but yeah, it was very helpful and very fun for me.
Great.
Good. It's awesome.
Well, thanks so much.
I feel so lucky. I actually got into another session of yours tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to playing that again.
Nice.
It'll be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna stop the broadcast here.